Chapter 1000. The group of creatures in the outer world were furious, and their hearts were bleeding. They saw that the lion-headed creature was completely dead. The death substitution talisman had burned out, and his body had turned into ashes. He could no longer be resurrected. After a few breaths, the creature with a human head and a horse body also died with a miserable scream. Not even a wisp of ash was left. After another dozen breaths, only the human was still struggling among the group of creatures. This person can't be killed. Stop! You can't kill him! At this moment, Red Lotus Venerable was anxious. One had to know that this human youth had a powerful background. He was the successor of an ancient sect in the great wide world. That sect's foundation was extremely terrifying. Ordinary people could not imagine it at all. If they angered that sect, even Red Lotus Venerable would suffer. Watch if you want, don't be noisy! Suddenly, a dignified voice rang out from an unknown place. At the same time, a palm print shot up like a meteor and bombarded the sky. Of course, this palm did not break the sky. After all, the southern wall was still there. However, this palm made Red Lotus Venerable and the others' expressions completely gloomy. Are you taking the initiative to start a war? How dare you provoke us? If we descend, all of you will die! Red Lotus Venerable and the others roared angrily. If it were not for the fact that they could not enter the ninth heaven divine realm, they would not be able to stand outside and watch. I have even flattened the sky! The voice sounded again. There was a hint of dominance in the dignified voice. If it weren't for the southern wall, you ants would have been flattened by me long ago. As soon as these words were spoken, Jiangqin and the others instantly understood that the person who spoke was most likely from the Pingtian clan. The Pingtian clan's name came from the fact that they had once flattened the sky. During the 3 eras of Sung Mie, Huang Mie, and Qing Mie, the sky had died. The main reason was that the Pingtian clan had made a move. Now, Red Lotus Venerable and the Pingtian clan were clamoring. How could they be so arrogant? They had even killed the sky. So what if the creatures of the ninth heaven divine realm don't follow the rules? Do you think everyone is as obedient as Tianya? Not only did I not follow the rules today, but I also want to protect these people who don't follow the rules. If you are not convinced, come down now! Clearly, the expert from the Pingtian clan did not have a good temper. He constantly used the word daddy and did not play by the rules. However, when these words fell into Jiang Chen's ears, he felt comfortable no matter how he heard them. Although I'm a teacher of the Golden Age Academy, why do I feel like the Pingtian clan is very much to my liking? Jiang Chen murmured. Fellow Taoist, this matter was negotiable. Don't hurt him. After a dozen breaths, Venerable Red Lotus and the others were completely terrified when they saw that the young human was about to die. Venerable Red Lotus spoke in person and lowered his stance. He was willing to negotiate with Jiang Chen and the others as long as they released the human youth. What's there to discuss? There was no room for discussion. Kill them all. However, before Jiang Chen could say anything, the expert from the Pingtian clan directly turned him down. Of course, there was no need for Jiang Chen to speak. The human youth could no longer hold on and finally turned into a wisp of ash. At this moment, angry roars could be heard from the sky, and lightning flashed. Venerable Red Lotus and the others were furious. They were shocked and furious. They knew that they had caused a huge disaster this time. He's a descendant of the human emperor's clan. Killing him is equivalent to offending the human emperor's clan in the boundless world. Venerable Red Lotus said coldly, wait for the human emperor's fury to descend. Human emperor? He's nothing. He's fake. The expert from the Pingtian clan said bluntly, in our eyes, there's only one true human emperor. And he's not in your boundless world. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, many people saw a palm strike out. Then, it turned into clouds that filled the sky. There were even runes and laws that appeared and enveloped the sky. This was a great divine ability, covering the sky with one hand. Clearly, the expert from the Pingtian clan had become ruthless. He covered the sky and did not let the beings in the outer world see the scene in the divine realm of the 9 firmaments. Human Emperor? At the same time, Jiang Chen's expression was somewhat absent-minded. It was because he thought of the human emperor on the godless continent. That was a mysterious expert who was as famous as Taoist Heaven Span. However, the human emperor and Taoist Heaven Span had never made a move, as if they had some scruples. Is the human emperor mentioned by the Pingtian clan the one from the godless continent? Jiang Chen muttered. As he spoke, Jiang Chen's expression suddenly changed, and he cried out, "I've suffered a huge loss." Then, Jiang Chen rushed over and rummaged through the void. Unfortunately, that group of beings had been refined until not even a speck of dust was left. They're all heaven-grade titled deities. Jiang Chen's heart was bleeding. Just now, Jiang Chen had forgotten about this matter. Otherwise, he would definitely have used the soul-capturing forbidden technique to obtain these heaven-grade titled deities. Now, he had suffered a huge loss. Auntie is so powerful. Yes. Not only is she beautiful, but she's also very strong. At this moment, the 3 virtuous deities were praising Princess Tianyong. Bird virtuous deity, in particular, had no bottom line. He plucked a vermilion bird's feather and made it into a fan, fanning Princess Tianyong. At the same time, Huang Dade's expression did not look right. He muttered, "You want to compete with me for my love? Should I make a 9 netherworld phoenix robe for Auntie?" Smack! As soon as he said that, Jiang Chen's lips twitched, and he slapped Huang Dade on the head. "You should know who your master is. Why didn't I see you making a 9 netherworld phoenix robe for me?" Jiang Chen snapped. "I'll look at what you're saying," Huang Dade said angrily. "They say that women are like clothes. You already have so many beautiful female disciples. Isn't that enough for you to wear?" When Jiang Chen heard that, he raised an eyebrow and did not want to say anything. These 3 virtuous deities had definitely been led astray by Mu Yud. The world's edge sealed the mountain, and the Pingtian clan did not follow the rules. Then, why should we follow the rules? All of a sudden, a figure shrouded in black fog appeared in the sky. He stood on a black cloud and was surrounded by runes. A dazzling godhead floated above his head like a black star. He walked towards Jiang Chen and the others and said loudly as if he was talking to the Pingtian clan and the world's edge, "Oh no! Let's go!" At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression changed drastically. He said to the people around him, "It's the patriarch of the Dark God Palace. What are you afraid of?" "We have Auntie," Bird Virtuous Deity said fearlessly. "This isn't the Dark Divine Palace's old ancestor. He's the Dark Divine Palace's old ancestor, the one behind the Dark Divine Palace." Jiang Chen hurried to explain. "This person's cultivation level is probably above Divine King." "Oh? Is that so? Above the Godly King level?" Bird Virtuous Deity said softly. He seemed very calm, but his body was very honest. He tore open the void with his wings and was the first to flee. Chapter 1001. The annihilation of 2 forces under the command of the Radiant Master God naturally caused quite a bit of commotion. The Sovereign of Light could not come out of the Divine Light Palace, but he was unwilling to give up. The only way was to let the other sovereigns take action. The 36 peak sovereigns were like birds of a feather. If the Sovereign of Light asked the other sovereigns for help, the other sovereigns would definitely agree. Moreover, the Sovereign of Light had most likely told them that Jiang Chen had a peak Divine King by his side. Otherwise, the Dark God Palace would not have sent an expert above the Divine King level. At that moment, Jiang Chen could tell from the aura that the other party was from the Dark God Palace. Combined with what he had done in the past few days, he was sure that the other party was here for him. "Let's split up," Jiang Chen said in a low voice. "A cultivator above the Divine King level is enough to wipe us out." "Master! I'll go with you," Old One said. "This time, we can't leave you alone again. Hurry up and leave. It's not like we're parting forever," Jiang Chen said angrily. He patted Old One's shoulder and said, "I'll come find you when the time comes." Old One did not say anything else. He knew how terrifying someone above the Divine King level was. In the end, the few of them left one after another. Jiang Chen deliberately stayed in the same spot for a while to buy time for Old One and the rest. Of course, Princess Tianyong was with Jiang Chen. To Princess Tianyong, wherever Jiang Chen went, she would go. There was no reason for it. If she had to give a reason, she could only say that she had been tricked by Jiang Chen. Tian Chen, you're quite bold. You actually dared to stay. After a dozen breaths, the expert from the Dark God Palace arrived. His terrifying aura shook the heavens and the earth, and the void around him was constantly collapsing. He was surrounded by black fog, and a divine halo floated above his head. It was as if the entire universe was dancing with him. The Dark God Palace sure has some tricks up their sleeves. To think that they would send out an expert above the Divine King realm for a little heavenly god like me, Jiang Chen said softly. His expression was calm and there was not a trace of fear in his eyes. There's nothing I can do about it. Who asked you to be so famous? That person laughed lightly. He seemed to be praising Jiang Chen, but his words were filled with disdain. To him, what was a godly king? If it weren't for the fact that Jiang Chen had been in a deep slumber all this while and had only just awakened now, he wouldn't have needed 36 chief gods to take action at all in his previous life. He alone would have been enough. I can give you a chance to pledge your loyalty to the Dark God Hall. If you do, I can spare your life and use the power of the Dark God Hall to nurture you, said the man. Upon hearing this, Jiang Chen sneered and asked, Is there no one else in the Dark God Hall? You actually want to take me, your sworn enemy, as your disciple? Humph! This old man just cherishes talent. The man's voice suddenly turned cold as he said, Since you insist, I'll send you on your way today. After saying that, black fog erupted from the man's body like sharp black arrows. There were even runes and laws floating on them. As he waved his hand, sharp arrows filled the sky and filled this part of the world. Even the void was pierced. Sounds of tremors and explosions rang out continuously. From afar, this place seemed to be corroded by darkness. There wasn't a trace of light. Old thing, you're still too inexperienced to kill me. Under the black arrows that filled the sky, Jiang Chen smiled mockingly. He was already prepared. He was proficient in formations. When he was talking to this person earlier, he secretly set up a teleportation formation. At this moment, Jiang Chen activated the formation and stepped into it with Princess Tianyong. In the blink of an eye, the two of them disappeared from this place. Oh? I was too careless, the man said softly and mocked himself. As he said, if he hadn't been careless, even if Jiang Chen had set up a teleportation formation, he wouldn't have been able to escape from his hands. After all, the difference in cultivation between both parties was too great. Even so, this person was very calm. Black fog flickered in his eyes. When his eyes opened and closed, it was as if he had seen through everything. Following that, his figure disappeared on the spot like a black wind and escaped into the void. At the same time, 100,000 miles away from Dark Forest Hall, Jiang Chen and Princess Tianyong came out of the teleportation formation and flew towards Yongzhou. Jiang Chen thought very clearly. If he wanted to stop that person now, he had to borrow the power of the Tianyong Empire. However, before they could fly far, a black fog suddenly exploded beside Jiang Chen. Go quickly! Return to the Tianyong Empire and get reinforcements. Jiang Chen pushed Princess Tianyong away and said seriously, This time, you have to listen to me. Oh. Princess Tianyong didn't have any objections. Seeing how serious Jiang Chen was, she naturally listened to him. After all, ever since she gained psychic powers, everything was taught by Jiang Chen. She listened to Jiang Chen very much. Don't even think about leaving. Just as Princess Tianyong stepped into the void, a black palm print rushed over and hit Princess Tianyong's back. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Princess Tianyong's mouth. Even her physical body cracked and almost exploded. However, she didn't hesitate and was still as obedient as before. She escaped into the void and flew towards Yongzhou without looking back. At the same time, Jiangqun escaped into the ground and used 3 strands of chaotic qi and the ever-changing heavenly lamp to hide his aura. The expert from the dark forest hall frowned slightly. After observing for a while, he said mockingly, "You can't imagine how terrifying the power above the godly king realm is." Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiangqun, who was hiding underground, froze. He felt that the soil around him was disintegrating and disappearing. In a short while, the land within 1,000 miles was refined and turned into nothingness. Luckily, Jiangqun escaped in time and didn't reveal himself. However, cultivators above the godly king realm were extremely powerful and their consciousness was extremely sensitive. In a short while, this person sensed Jiangqun's aura. Even with the 3 strands of chaotic qi and the ever-changing heavenly lamp protecting him, it was difficult to escape the detection of this person's consciousness. In a short while, Jiangqun was suddenly hit by a terrifying force. His physical body exploded in an instant, and his soul and spirit were almost shattered. If the ever-changing heavenly lamp's bearer hadn't suddenly moved at the last moment, and an obscure force enveloped Jiangqun's soul and spirit, Jiangqun's soul would have been scattered. However, even if he didn't die, Jiangqun was severely injured. After a short pause, Jiangqun hurriedly rebuilt his physical body and escaped into the void. However, this time, before he could escape for 1,000 meters, he was swept out of the void by a gust of dark wind. "Do you think you can escape?" At this moment, the expert from the dark forest hall appeared in front of Jiangqun and said with contempt, "It's time for the game of cat and mouse to end." "Is that so?" Jiangqun raised his eyebrows and a trace of coldness flashed across his eyes. Then, he chuckled and said, "See you in 10 days. Chapter 1002. See him in 10 days? What did that mean? The expert from the Dark God Hall was puzzled, but he did not hesitate to strike. He slammed his palm down like a black cloud. "Forbidden technique, dissolution by arms." At that moment, Jiangqun was very decisive. His physical body collapsed instantly, and even his divine spirit and soul turned into nothingness. In a short moment, Jiangqun seemed to have evaporated into thin air. Not even a wisp of aura was left. How ruthless! The person was shocked. He did not expect Jiangqun to use the dissolution by arms technique. The dissolution by arms technique was a forbidden technique. It was different from ordinary dissolution by arms techniques. Once this technique was used, Jiangqun's physical body, divine spirit, soul, and even his entire being would turn into nothingness. However, after the dissolution by arms technique was used, a wisp of Jiangqun's true spirit would be left behind. It would escape into an unknown place and leave a chance for survival. However, even if he survived, Jiangqun's condition would be much worse than before. Everything in his body would be severely damaged. It was not certain if he could recover. In fact, if an accident happened and the wisp of true spirit dissipated, Jiangqun would really die. "See you in 10 days? Okay, I'll wait." After a few breaths, the person left. He did not look for Jiangqun's wisp of true spirit. After all, this was the dissolution by arms technique. It was a forbidden technique that only people who had reached the end of the road would use. Under this forbidden technique, the wisp of true spirit that escaped was illusory. Even if one's cultivation surpassed the King of Gods, it would be difficult to find it. Moreover, the person was very sure that Jiangqun would not die. This was because he believed in Jiangqun's strength and ability. It was because he believed in Jiangqun's strength and ability that the 36 lords tried their best to kill Jiangqun. As a patriarch of the Dark God Hall, he did not hesitate to take action because he was afraid that Jiangqun would grow stronger. Interesting. The world is in chaos. In the back mountain of the Glittering Jewel Academy, a man shrouded in fog chuckled. This person was none other than the person who had previously rebuked the Red Lotus Venerable. He had been paying attention to Jiangqun all this time. He had seen Jiangqun being forced to surrender with his own eyes. However, He did not make a move because there was no need for him to do so, nor was there any obligation to do so. However, he was very curious. Under such circumstances, even if Jiang Chun came back to life, what could he do? The World's Edge had sealed the mountain, and the Linlang Academy had even said that they did not care about the rules. As such, Jiang Chen's enemies naturally had no scruples. In this way, all the enemies Jiang Chen had to face now had cultivations that far surpassed his own. If no one stood up for Jiang Chen's future path would be dangerous. Tian Xian, Tian Yuan, Tian Qing, Tian Sang. Heh. You've reincarnated a few times, but you're still the same, the person said softly. I wonder what kind of tricks you'll play in this life. I'm really looking forward to it. At the same time, in Glory World Academy, the gray-haired old man looked into the distance. Naturally, he was also paying attention to Jiang Chen. He had even seen Jiang Chen being forced to surrender. However, he did not make a move. The others on the World's Edge also did not make a move. It was only because the world was too chaotic now. Since the World's Edge had chosen to seal the mountain, it meant that they would not interfere with the affairs of the world for the time being. Then, if Jiang Chen encountered any danger during the period of time when the World's Edge was sealed, it would all depend on his own fortune. However, there was still a hint of anger in the gray-haired old man's eyes. After looking into the distance for a while, his expression became slightly gloomy. He said softly, "The real chaotic world has descended. So what if you're above the Divine King level? In the end, you're still ants and weeds." Time passed slowly. 10 days later, in a forest in Xi'an State, a wisp of divine light suddenly appeared here 10 days ago and landed on an ancient tree in the forest. During these 10 days, this wisp of divine light flickered continuously, absorbing the qi of heaven and earth. At the same time, there was also a light floating around it. And this wisp of divine light was the wisp of true soul that Jiang Chen had escaped. During these 10 days, Jiang Chen's weapon release was successful. At this moment, the divine light suddenly exploded, and his divine soul and spirit returned to their original position. After a few breaths, his physical body was reconstructed and he recovered. However, the current Jiang Chen's face was pale and he was very weak. His blood qi had dried up, his divine power had dried up, and even his divine soul and spirit were like that withered tree, without a single wisp of divine light. Not bad, I survived. Jiang Chen's heart still had lingering fear. If he did not know the forbidden art of weapon release, he was afraid that this time, he would have really died. However, even if he survived, Jiang Chen felt that his condition was very bad. His foundation of Dao fruit was not damaged, but his blood qi and divine power had been severely damaged. This was injuring his origin source. I need to replenish my energy, Jiang Chen said softly. He sat cross-legged on the ground and adjusted his breathing, absorbing the qi of heaven and earth. It was not until 3 days later that he recovered a little. After that, he took out a small booklet. This was the list of enemies that the first brother had given him. Back then, the people and sects that had attacked Tenshin Shinzo were all recorded in this small booklet by the first brother. Dark God Palace. I haven't come looking for you, but you came looking for me first, Jiang Chen said in a low voice. After flipping through a few pages of the booklet, he quickly saw a series of sects under the Dark God Palace, as well as the names of those who had chased after Tenshin Shinzo. Xi'an Prefecture, the territory of the Fire God. After a few breaths, Jiang Chen closed the booklet, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. As far as he knew, the Fire God had always been a lone wolf, and he did not care about his own affairs. The Fire God Palace that he had established was in Xi'an Prefecture. Of course, the current Jiang Chen did not have the strength to cause trouble in the Fire God Palace. However, there were many affiliated sects under the Fire God Palace. Those sects rarely contacted the Fire God Palace. After all, the Fire God himself did not care about his own affairs, so who would go to the Fire God Palace for no reason? Over time, the sects and forces under the Fire God Palace had even less contact with the Fire God Palace. This was undoubtedly a good thing for Jiangchen. After deliberating for a while, Jiangchen's eyes flashed, and he said, "Fire God, I can only come to you to collect some interest. Otherwise, I won't be able to make up for the loss of so much origin energy in a short time." After that, Jiangchen left the forest, concealed his aura, and headed towards the north of Qian Prefecture. There was a sect affiliated with the Fire God Palace there. The sect master and the elders under him had also attacked Tenshin Shinzo's people back then. That sect was not very strong. There was no ancient divine king overseeing it, and the strongest person was only the sect master, a lower lord god. For the current Jiangchen, a strong sect like this was undoubtedly a delicious cake that would be highly sought after. Just as Jiangchen was quietly heading towards the north of Qian Prefecture, all the major forces in He Prefecture, which was close to Qian Prefecture, had received a decree telling them to be vigilant and guard against Jiangchen's sneak attack. Obviously, the ancestor of the Dark God Palace was also somewhat afraid. He was worried that after Jiangchen returned, he would attack the affiliated forces of the Dark God Palace. In fact, the ancestor of the Dark God Palace was still worried. He borrowed many experts from the nearby Fire God Palace and scattered them in He Prefecture, guarding various places, waiting for Jiangchen to take revenge. Chapter 1003. Black Province's forces were on high alert and had even borrowed many powerhouses from the Fire God Temple to guard the area, waiting for Jiangchen to come knocking on their door. However, they never would have thought that a wisp of Jiangchen's true soul had been transported to Qian Prefecture. And now, he was preparing to attack the Fire God Temple's subsidiary forces. Half a day later, in the northern part of Qian Prefecture, near Liayun sect. After Jiangchen arrived, he did not attack right away. Instead, he concealed his aura and secretly set up a formation. After all, with his current strength and condition, if he barged into Liayun sect, there would only be one outcome: death. However, a formation was different. As long as the formation was strong enough, it could go against the weak. Even a godly king would die if they came. Of course, Jiangchen did not have enough materials on hand, so the formation he set up could barely deal with upper-rank lords. However, that was enough. After all, the strongest person in Liayun sect was only a lower-rank lord. Once Jiangchen's formation was successfully set up, what would a lower-rank lord be worth? 3 days later, 13 days had passed since Jiangchen's dissolution. The Dark God Temple's patriarch was very puzzled these few days. Logically speaking, Jiangchen should have come by now. However, there was no movement in Black Province during these 3 days. They did not even detect Jiangchen's aura. This made him very puzzled. Could it be that the reincarnated Jiangchen's personality and temper had changed? Oh no! Something big has happened! At that moment, the Dark God Temple received news that Liayun sect in the northern part of Qian Prefecture had been destroyed. Moreover, it had been destroyed 2 days ago. Why did we only receive news 2 days after such a huge sect was destroyed? The Dark God Temple's patriarch was shocked and furious. His brows were tightly knitted as he tried to guess who did it. At the same time, the group of Fire God Temple's powerhouses who came to Black Province to oversee the situation were all furious when they heard the news. They all rushed back to Qian Prefecture to search for Jiangchen. However, the Scorching Cloud sect had been destroyed 2 days ago. During these 2 days, Jiangchen had not only looted the treasures of the Scorching Cloud sect, but he had also recuperated for a day and recovered a great deal. Furthermore, Jiangchen was no longer in the Qian Prefecture. Instead, he had entered the Black Prefecture. Jiangchen was not stupid. With such a huge sect being destroyed, the Fire Divine Palace must have sent out a large number of people, and almost overturned the Scarlet Cloud Prefecture. If he continued to stay in the Qian Prefecture, only death awaited him. I'll slowly play with you guys. On this day, Jiangchen came to the western part of the Black Province and set his eyes on a subordinate force of the Dark God Hall. Just like before, Jiangchen secretly set up a formation, using the myriad transformations Heavenly Lamp and Chaotic Chi to conceal his aura. Just like that, 3 days later, the Dark God Palace received news that one of their subordinate forces had been destroyed right under their noses. Furthermore, it was destroyed 2 days ago. Who did it? To destroy a sect without anyone knowing, I'm afraid even a divine king can't do it. At this moment, the Fire Divine Palace and the Dark God Palace were both suspicious. Was there an expert who surpassed the divine king targeting them? Of course, they had also thought that it was Jiangchen who did it. However, they did not think that a heavenly god realm cultivator who had just been dismembered would have such ability. Inform all the upper echelons of our Dark God Palace's subordinate forces, as well as the genius disciples, to come to the Dark God Palace. The Dark God Palace's ancestor immediately ordered. He was not sure who was doing it. He thought that it was an expert who surpassed the divine king level targeting them. Therefore, he was a little afraid. Now, he could only abandon the rook to protect the general. He would first protect the sex experts and those geniuses. As for the others, he could not be bothered with them. After all, this was how the world worked. Ordinary people would eventually be abandoned by others and not be valued. At this moment, Jiangchen did not leave the Black Province. Instead, he went to the other subordinate forces of the Dark God Palace to take a look. No one? No one here either? Half a day later, Jiangchen went to 3 forces consecutively and found that the experts in these forces had all disappeared. Those who stayed behind did not have high cultivation levels either. Of course, these were not important to Jiangchen. The important thing was that he had sneaked into these forces' treasure vaults and found that they were empty. This made Jiangchen very uncomfortable. If they had left, then so be it. Why did they have to take away their own belongings? One had to know that what Jiangchen needed the most now was supplements. As for the remaining disciples, what was the use of Jiangchen killing them? These people had not participated in the pursuit of Tenchin Shinzo back then. Those who had participated in it had all run away now. Have they all gone to hide in the Dark God Palace? Jiangchen said softly. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a sinister smile. After that, he secretly set up a formation near these forces. As long as the Divine King returned to the forces, these formations would be activated. I don't believe that you won't come back for the rest of your lives. If you dare to come back, you'll all die, Jiangchen said with a chuckle. In the end, Jiangchen strolled around the Black Province. After setting up formations in the 6 forces, he left quietly. At the same time, some of the upper echelons of the Fire God Palace and the Dark God Palace were secretly contacting each other to discuss who had taken action this time. Some even suspected that it was the Glittering Jewel Academy who had secretly taken action. Of course, when they went to the Glittering Jewel Academy to seek confirmation, they were directly chased out. However, the Glittering Jewel Academy also said that this matter had nothing to do with them. Who did it? An upper-ranked chief god of the Fire God Palace frowned and said, quietly exterminating one of the forces under the Fire God Palace. It's absolutely impossible if one's cultivation level is not higher than a god king. Just as everyone was puzzled, in the Qian province, or the north, Jiangchen was back again. After returning, Jiangchen opened the little notebook and soon found his next target. Just like before, Jiangchen secretly set up formations again and killed the group of experts in the force. After looting the treasury, he left suavely. However, the Fire God Palace was obviously on guard this time. A group of experts patrolled the Qian province and discovered this on the same day. But this time, they found a clue. He used formations to destroy the entire sect? It was done by the same person. On this day, the Fire God Palace's upper echelons had ugly expressions because the Inferno Chief God had personally taken action. He went to the destroyed force. When he saw the traces of the formations, his face darkened. A bunch of trash. Who else could have done something like this apart from Tianqin back then? Have you all forgotten? He's proficient in all fields, and his attainments in formations are even hailed as the number 1 in this era. The Inferno Chief God rebuked angrily, and went to the destroyed force again. After a round of investigation, his face became even gloomier. "Are you all blind? You didn't even see such a huge formation trace?" The Inferno chief god was furious. "We didn't think of that," someone explained. One must know that after Jiangqin used formations to destroy a force, he would erase the formation traces. It was precisely because of this that these people suspected that a powerhouse surpassing the God-King level had taken action. If they knew that these forces were destroyed by formations, they would definitely think of Jiangqin. Unfortunately, it was too late to think of it now. "Sir! The formation traces here seem to have formed a line of words." Suddenly, someone discovered something and exclaimed. Chapter 1004. After the formation was destroyed, traces were left behind. Upon closer inspection, these traces formed a line of words. When the Inferno Master God heard that, he took a closer look, and his face turned green the next moment. "Raid your hometown!" Looking at these words, how could the Inferno Master God still have the mood to stay here? He dove into the void and rushed toward his own Fire God Temple. However, when he arrived at the Fire God Temple, he discovered that there was nothing unusual here, and he could not detect a trace of Jiangqin's aura. This made him very puzzled. Could it be that Jiangqin left behind those words to mess with him? Impossible! I know him too well. There's definitely something wrong with this, the Inferno Master God said in a low voice. After thinking about it carefully, a hint of mockery flashed across his eyes. Back then, Jiangqin was the godly king who ruled over the 9 heavens divine world. The 36 Master Gods had a deep relationship with him, and it could even be said that they knew each other well. Usually, they would communicate with each other. As time went by, everyone got to know what kind of person Jiangqin was. Now, the Inferno Master God was certain that Jiangqin had definitely gone to raid his hometown. However, this hometown was not raiding the Fire God Temple. In that case, if it was not the Fire God Temple, which faction could it be? Even with his eyes closed, the Inferno Master God could think of only one place that was close to Qian Prefecture and had a grudge with Jiangqin, Black Prefecture. Sure. The Inferno Master God smiled mockingly, and even ordered that those words were not to be spread out. At the same time, he actually sent someone to the Dark God Temple to inform their upper echelons that they had discovered Jiangqin's tracks in Qian Prefecture. After doing all that, the Inferno Master God disappeared like a wisp of smoke. If the upper echelons of the Dark God Temple were to find out about this, their faces would probably turn green from anger. After all, the Inferno Master God was scamming the Dark God Temple. However, thinking about it carefully, this was also very normal. Although the 36 Master Gods were of the same breath and branch, none of them usually gave in to each other, and would even come to blows. In fact, these 36 Master Gods even understood that if not for the fact that their strength was about the same, and they kept each other in check, they would have fought long ago. Open strife and veiled strife were all too normal for these 36 people. But now, since the Inferno Master God had already guessed that Jiangqin was going to scam the Dark God Palace, he was naturally overjoyed. In fact, he was even secretly helping Jiangqin out. But of course, the Inferno Master God's heart was as clear as a mirror. He was certain that Jiangqin had already predicted that he would do this. "Tianqin, I'll give you a chance to F*CK over the Dark God Palace. If you don't F*CK them over badly enough, don't blame me for what happens next." The Inferno Master God was hiding in a void somewhere as his face was filled with mockery while his eyes were filled with anticipation. On this day, a group of powerhouses from the Dark God Palace, including the Old Ancestor, came to the Qian Prefecture. They began to wantonly search for Jiangqin's tracks, almost turning the entire Qian Prefecture upside down. However, for 3 consecutive days, the group of overgods and even the ancestors above God Kings failed to find any trace of Jiangqin. Could it be that Jiangqin had already left the Qian Prefecture? "Inferno, you said that you found Jiangqin's tracks in the Qian Prefecture. Where is he? Why can't we find him?" There are so many of us over-gods and an old ancestor from the Dark God Palace. Even if it were a god-king, he would still be found by us. Now, how can a mere heavenly deity realm and escape our eyes? The group of powerhouses from the Dark God Palace were extremely puzzled. They even sought out the Inferno Master God in the void and questioned him face to face. The Inferno Master God was extremely calm as he chuckled out. A few days ago, we did indeed find traces of him in the Qian prefecture. But how can you blame me for not being able to find him? Perhaps he has already left. As he said that, the Inferno Master God waved his hand in a seemingly indifferent manner. Forget it, forget it. Now that he has reincarnated, his cultivation state is no longer the same as before. What's there to be afraid of? That man must die. He's a disaster if he's left alive, the old ancestor from the Dark God Palace said in a deep voice. Light shone from his body as darkness gradually covered the entire Qian prefecture like a cloud. He had an ominous feeling in his heart. It seemed like something big was about to happen. Therefore, he desperately wanted to find Jiangchen and kill him for good. However, right at that moment, a divine consciousness was transmitted into his mind. That was the voice of a master god from the Dark God Palace. At that moment, it was transmitted from 1,000 miles away. His voice was filled with urgency, panic, and even fury. The Dark God Palace's outer treasury has been ransacked. That short sentence caused the old ancestor from the Dark God Palace to turn pale with fright. He did not say anything else. Instead, he tore through the void and sprinted toward the Dark God Palace in the Black Prefecture. However, by the time he arrived at the Dark God Palace, it was already too late. Looking around, the Dark God Palace was still the same as before. There were no changes at all, and it looked very safe. However, upon closer inspection, the air was filled with wisps of cryptic runic aura. Furthermore, beneath the ground of the Dark God Palace, there were even formation runes that had yet to fade and were still flashing. These formation runes were connected and turned into a teleportation formation. Its purpose was to reach the Dark God Palace's outer treasury. Old ancestor! The outer treasury has been ransacked. Everything inside is gone. A heaven-class tidal power has been stolen. There are still 6 earth-class tidal powers left. And the 9 transformation heavenly dew has also been stolen. At that moment, the group of Dark God Palace's elites were pale. They had a heavy responsibility for the theft of the treasury. Give the order! Kill Tianqin at all costs! The old ancestor from the Dark God Palace roared angrily. He had long sensed that the runes and formation runes left behind here carried Jiang Chen's aura. This time, he was completely enraged. The theft of a heaven-class tidal power was already considered a big deal. It should be known that that item was left for the only son of the Dark God Palace's master. A heaven-class tidal power can be exchanged with other forces for a little price. But that 9 transformation heavenly dew, someone said in a low voice. At the mention of the 9 transformation heavenly dew, his entire body trembled. That was prepared for you to pass the tribulation, someone said in a trembling voice. When the old ancestor from the Dark God Palace heard this, his chest heaved up and down. He almost fainted. One should know that his cultivation was above a godly king. He was just one step away from becoming a godly emperor. And this 9 transformation heavenly dew was used to pass the godly emperor heavenly tribulation. But now, it had been stolen. The godly emperor heavenly tribulation was so terrifying that very few people had been able to pass it since ancient times. The old ancestor from the Dark God Palace had prepared for several eras before obtaining the 9 transformation heavenly dew. He had thought that he could use this item to pass the tribulation and enter the godly emperor realm during the Golden Age. Who would have thought that? Mobilize everyone! Go and find him! If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. The old ancestor from the Dark God Palace roared. I, the Dark Mystic King, swear that if I don't kill Tianqin, I won't become a godly emperor. Chapter 1005. The dark mystic lord was enraged. Even his tribulation transcendence item had been stolen. His chances of becoming an emperor god were slim. He was filled with hatred. If he had known that Jiangchen was so daring to steal from the Dark God Palace's treasury, he would have brought the 9-turn heavenly dew with him. Oh? Not bad, you stole the 9-turn heavenly dew! Ha! At the same time, the Flame Master God also received the news and could not stop laughing. But soon, his face turned serious. Because Jiangchen was so daring to steal from the Dark God Palace, he would naturally dare to steal from the Fire God Palace as well. At that moment, the Flame Master God was very decisive. He kept all the treasures in the Fire God Palace into his soul for safekeeping. Tianchen, I'm different from the other masters. I just need to take care of myself, the Flame Master God said with a smile. In the next few days, the Dark God Palace went completely crazy. All the experts took action and headed to various states to search for Jiangchen's whereabouts. Even the Dark Mystic Lord took action personally. He did not hesitate to expend a large amount of divine power to travel the world in order to find Jiangchen and take back the 9-turn heavenly dew. And when the Dark God Palace was making a big fuss, where was Jiangchen? He was still in the Black State. And he was still in the Dark God Palace. Jiangchen had calculated the thoughts of these people accurately. After knowing that the 9-turn heavenly dew had been stolen, the Dark God Palace would definitely not sit still. After all, it was related to whether the Dark God Palace could have another Emperor God. Just like that, Jiangchen hid in the Dark God Palace, relying on the myriad transformations heavenly lamp and the 3 wisps of chaotic aura to hide in the dark. Until 5 days later, when he was sure that all the experts in the Dark God Palace had taken action, he took action again. This time, he placed the formation stones that he had prepared in advance in the Dark God Palace's treasury. Using the star-shifting technique, he transferred all the treasures out. After that, he didn't even bother to destroy the array formation before he left the place. Pfft. 3 days later, an expert returned. When he discovered that the treasury of the Dark God Palace had been completely looted, he spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. His vision went dark, and he fainted just like that. Half a day later, the Dark Mystic King learned of this matter. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling, and blood was spurting out from his 7 orifices. He stared at the void in front of him as if he wanted to see through the illusion and find Jiangchen. However, under the protection of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp and the 3 strands of chaotic qi, as long as Jiangchen did not make a move, not many people in this world could find him. Place a bounty! In the end, the Dark God Palace was forced into a corner. They contacted the major assassin organizations of the 9th Heaven Divine World and paid a huge price to place a bounty on Jiangchen. Among them was Extinction Shadow Sect. The Absolute Shadow Sect was notorious in the 9th Heaven Divine Realm, specializing in assassinations. However, this time, although the Ultimate Shadow Sect accepted the assassination, they did not take action. The Extinction Shadow Sect even used their own intelligence network and some techniques to locate Jiangchen. You're in big trouble. 3 days later, in a canyon in Heizhou, the young master of the Extinction Shadow Sect relied on the intelligence and the divine ability of the Extinction Shadow Sect to find Jiangchen. As soon as they met, Lu Ying directly threw a thick stack of silk books at Jiangchen's face and said snappily, "Look at what these are. More than 30 assassin organizations and more than 60 intelligence organizations in the 9th Heaven Divine World have all placed a bounty on you. Now, there is no place for you in the 9th Heaven Divine World. You will be found sooner or later." When Jiangchen saw Lu Ying, he was stunned for a moment, wondering how Lu Ying found him. But soon, he did not care about this matter. He picked up the stack of silk books. On them were the bounty orders that the major assassin organizations and intelligence organizations had placed on him. Among them, the one with the highest bounty was actually a heavenly title power. That's not right. Jiangchen looked at it carefully for a while, then said with a strange expression, "Where does the Dark God Palace get the money to place so many bounties?" "What do you mean?" Lu Ying was stunned and confused. Their treasury has been cleaned out by me. Where does the Dark God Palace get the money to pay the bounty? Jiangchen said and then waved his hand. The treasures that he stole from the Dark God Palace appeared in front of Lu Ying. At this moment, Lu Ying was dumbfounded. In front of him, there were 3 treasures that were as tall as a small mountain. They were piled up together, and divine light shot into the sky. Among them, there was no lack of rare treasures. For example, rare immortal gold that was used to refine Tao attainment items, unknown divine stones, and even half of the Dark God Palace's cultivation technique. No wonder the Dark God Palace issued so many bounty orders. It turns out that you have done such a thing that angered both men and gods. Lu Ying's expression was strange, and his eyes were shining. He said, "So many treasures, can you use them all by yourself?" "I can't use them all," Jiangchen said directly. "Some things are not needed. I have to sell them and exchange them for other things." "What do you lack?" "Let's see what I have to exchange with you." Lu Ying narrowed his eyes and stared at the heaven-level tidal power. One must know that Lu Ying had been a tidal god for a long time, but his tidal power was only at the spiritual level. Now, he had an idea. If he could get the heaven-level tidal power, he would rather recultivate to the tidal god realm. However, would Jiangchen agree? "What relationship do I have with you? If you want the heaven-level tidal power, take it." Jiangchen was very generous, as if he did not care about the heaven-level tidal power at all. This made Lu Ying a little confused. He stared at Jiangchen with a strange expression and asked, "The things that you stole from the Dark God Palace are not just these, right? There are too many. How can I take them all out?" Jiangchen said jokingly, "The external treasury of the Dark God Palace only has 1 heaven-level tidal power, but the internal treasury, he." As he spoke, Jiangchen stretched out 6 fingers. 6! Lu Ying exclaimed. The significance of these 6 heaven-level tidal powers was extraordinary. If they were obtained by a certain force, it meant that they could create 6 heaven-level tidal gods. If they were nurtured well, these 6 heaven-level tidal gods would become 6 heaven-level main gods, or even heaven-level divine kings, or even heaven-level divine emperors. Spread the news that I have emptied the Dark God Palace. Tell those assassin organizations and intelligence organizations." Jiangchen chuckled and said, "I want to see if they will still be willing to kill me for the Dark God Palace after knowing that they have no money." "This, they probably won't," Lu Ying said. "Assassin organizations and intelligence organizations all work for money. If they don't have money, how can they work for you?" "Then it's fine." Jiangchen smiled and said, "And I have money now." As he spoke, Jiangchen directly sent the 3 piles of treasures in front of Lu Ying and said, "Use these to place a bounty. I want the life of the Dark God Palace's Dark Mystic King." Dark Mystic King! That is an existence that surpasses the divine kings. According to what I know, the Dark Mystic King broke through to the Supreme God level a long time ago. He is only 1 step away from becoming a divine emperor," Lu Ying exclaimed. Assassinating a supreme god, this was too difficult. Chapter 1006. Above the divine king was the supreme god. Since ancient times, there had been many supreme gods, but not many had shown themselves to the world. That was because any cultivator who could step into the supreme god realm could become an emperor god. Therefore, most of the time, supreme gods would not show themselves. They would cultivate in seclusion, hoping to take the most crucial step and become an emperor god. However, this era was a little special. A bright golden age was about to descend, and there were as many opportunities as the stars in the sky. Even an ultimate god would want to seize an opportunity to become an emperor god in the golden age. Therefore, it was not surprising that there were a few supreme gods in this era. However, it was a little too much to want to kill a supreme god. At least, to Lu Ying, Jiangchen's request was too much. How could an ultimate god be killed so easily? Which one of the assassin organizations and intelligence organizations in the ninth heaven divine world isn't a good person? Jiangqin joked. I don't believe that there isn't a supreme god in so many assassin organizations and intelligence organizations. There are a few. Luing muttered. One of the supreme elders of Juying's sect was a supreme god. However, such people would not easily take action. They were the trump cards of a force. Such an existence was the key to protecting the force. How could they take action for a little reward? Moreover, the person who wanted the reward this time was not an ordinary person, but the Dark God Palace's Dark Xian King. This person had been famous for a long time. He was extremely powerful and was half a step into the Emperor God realm. An ordinary ultimate god would most likely not be a match for such a person and might even be killed. Money makes the world go round, Jiangqin said. Help me spread the news. This time, the reward for the Dark Xian King is a bottle of 9-turn heavenly dew. What? 9-turn heavenly dew? Luing exclaimed. That was something. 9-turn heavenly dew was a heaven-defying treasure that cultivators stole from the heavenly Tao and condensed over time. This item was useless to ordinary people, but to supreme gods, especially those who had a chance to break through to the Emperor God realm, this item was the key to the Emperor God realm. With the 9 revolutions heavenly dew, there was no need to worry about the God Emperor heavenly tribulation at all. He could safely pass through it. This thing was also stolen from the Dark Divine Hall? Luing asked. I reckon that the Dark Profound King prepared it for himself. He also didn't expect that I would rob the Dark Divine Palace's treasury. Jiangqin laughed. How is it? Is this 9 turns heavenly dew enough? When Luing heard this, she did not immediately agree. After all, this was a matter of great importance. Even an ultimate god would have to consider it carefully. If you trust me, then give me the 9 revolutions heavenly dew. I'll make the arrangements, Luing said. After all, the reward has to be paid first. Of course, Jiangqin said with a smile. Since the young master of the ultimate shadow sect has said so, how can I not be at ease? Finished talking, under Lu Ying's stupefied face, Jiangqin actually really handed the 9 revolutions heavenly dew to him. Aren't you afraid that I'll run away with the 9 transformations heavenly dew? Luing asked. What's there to be afraid of? It's just a bottle of 9 revolutions heavenly dew, Jiangqin said. Moreover, you're not that kind of person. One must know that if the ultimate shadow sect wanted to make a move on Jiangqin, it would not be Luing who came here at this moment, but the group of assassins. Thinking about it, the ultimate shadow sect should want to help Jiangqin. Moreover, as far as Jiangqin knew, there was some enmity between the ultimate shadow sect and the Dark Divine Hall. Now that the reward for the Dark Profound King was paid by Jiangqin, how could the ultimate shadow sect not agree? Don't worry, leave this to me. In the end, Luing left and told Jiangqin to see him in He province in 10 days. Jiangqin did not say much. After setting up a formation around him and hiding his aura, he began to cultivate. He had obtained many treasures from the Dark Divine Hall. There were countless elixirs and treasures. With these things, not only could Jiangqin recover, but his cultivation would also improve greatly. Just like that, Jiangqin hid in He province and cultivated quietly. Time also slowly passed by, until 3 days later. On this day, Jiangqin woke up from his cultivation. A mysterious light flashed in his eyes, as if it was the brightest light in the world. He stretched his body, and the blood chi in his body surged. His divine soul and spirit were even more dazzling. The divine light was like a river that covered his entire body, rolling and moving. The injuries caused by the martial release had already healed. Even his cultivation had broken through to the upper heavenly god realm. And what made Jiangqin the most excited was that in these 3 days, he had consumed a large amount of treasures and shed more than 500 spiritual bodies. At the same time, he discovered a shocking change on his ribs. Originally, there were rune flowers that looked like roses growing on his ribs. Now, these flowers had merged into one and turned into an extremely dazzling rose. the rose bloomed in Jiang Chen's chest. In the heart of the flower, there seemed to be a god sitting cross-legged. His appearance could not be seen clearly, but he could hear the obscure chanting of scriptures. His body shook, and the god in the heart of the flower suddenly opened his eyes. A powerful force erupted, sweeping through his limbs and bones. Jiang Chen was startled, and when he detected such a power, he made a rough estimation. With his current power, he could probably easily suppress a low-level venerable god. In fact, he would even be able to put up a fight against an intermediate god. Spiritual body transformation, rose fusion. Jiang Chen was delighted. He kept the spiritual bodies in his soul world. Then, he got up, tidied himself up, and looked into the distance. Today was the day he had agreed to meet Lu Ying. Jiang Chen knew that the Ultimate Shadow Sect had a special ability that could find him. Therefore, he waited here for Lu Ying's arrival. However, until night time, he did not see Lu Ying's figure. This made Jiang Chen somewhat puzzled. He wondered if something had happened to Lu Ying. Of course, Jiang Chen would never think that Lu Ying would betray him, let alone run away with the 9 transformation heavenly dew. After all, Jiang Chen was quite accurate in reading people. Could it be that there's a problem in the Ultimate Shadow Sect? Jiang Chen wondered. Should he make a trip to the Ultimate Shadow Sect to take a look? However, not many people in this world knew about the mountain gate of the Ultimate Shadow Sect. Even if he wanted to go, he could not find it. Boom! Just as Jiang Chen was puzzled, a series of explosions suddenly came from the distance. Looking up, tens of thousands of miles away from Jiang Chen, in the sky, the void there exploded. A terrifying void storm swept through everything. The light of the great Tao floated in the void, as if ripples were spreading. That side of the world was changing color. Taking a closer look, there were many figures in the light of the great Tao. There were actually people fighting. Who are you? I am the Dark Mystic King! After a dozen breaths, an angry roar sounded, shaking the entire Black Province. At this moment, Jiang Chen stared at the sky and saw that the Dark Mystic King was injured. The top of his head was torn open, one of his arms was chopped off, and even his chest was pierced. Chapter 1007. An ultimate god of a generation was actually beaten to such a state in his own territory. At this moment, Jiang Chen smiled. He knew that this was the work of those assassin organizations and intelligence organizations. It seemed that the bottle of 9 turns heavenly dew was still very useful. I am the Dark Mystic King! One of the ancestors of the Dark God Palace. Aren't you afraid of my Dark God Palace's anger? At this moment, the Dark Mystic King roared. His body was on the verge of collapse, and even his divine soul was trembling. His soul was flickering as if it would extinguish at any moment. However, the people around him remained silent. All of them had changed their auras, making it impossible for others to see through their true identities. Moreover, these people attacked again. Each of their methods were heaven-defying, and the aura they emitted was actually at the ultimate god level. The waters of the 9th heaven divine world are still deep. Jiang Chen sighed. Under normal circumstances, even divine kings were rarely seen in this world. The divine kings that could be seen now were basically ancient divine kings that had survived a few eras. As for ultimate gods, that was even more rare. But now, for the 9 turns heavenly dew, so many ultimate gods had appeared all of a sudden. This made Jiang Chen somewhat depressed, and he lamented that his vision was indeed shallow in the past. Boom! Following that, the battle in the sky became more and more intense. The Dark Mystic King was extremely strong, and he actually had the strength to fight against a few ultimate gods. However, as time passed, this old fellow couldn't hold on any longer. His body collapsed, his divine soul and soul dimmed, and his life aura became weaker and weaker. In the end, the Dark Mystic King couldn't hold on any longer. He burned his blood essence, tore through the void, and escaped back into the Dark God Palace. Jiang Chen saw all of this and couldn't help but sigh. In the end, he couldn't kill the Dark Mystic King. However, thinking about it carefully, it was normal. After all, as an ultimate god, he controlled the power of heaven and earth. How could he be killed so easily? Unless one had an absolute advantage in strength, it was too difficult to kill an ultimate god. Moreover, the location of this group of assassins was in the Black Province, the hometown of the Dark Mystic King. This fellow had escaped back into the Dark God Palace, so this group of assassins couldn't continue to chase after him. After all, the Dark God Palace's foundation was very deep, and there might be more ultimate god-level experts than the Dark Mystic King. The consequences of rashly chasing after him. The moment I step into the God Emperor realm, I will definitely get rid of all of you. After the Dark Profound King returned to the Dark God Palace, he angrily roared to the heavens, threatening to exterminate these assassin organizations. However, these assassins still didn't say anything. They directly escaped into the darkness and disappeared. You saw it? Not long after, Luing arrived. His expression was somewhat unsightly, and he felt rather awkward. That was because the Dark Mystic King was still alive. Inviting so many supreme gods at once. Luing frowned and said, "Even if we didn't kill the Dark Profound King, we still have to give away that bottle of 9-turn heavenly dew. Otherwise, I understand." Jiang Chen nodded and said, "It's fine, just give it to them. But don't worry. As long as Dark Profound King is not dead, as long as there is a chance, those supreme gods will still take action," Luing said with a stern expression. "Assassin organizations are like this, they take people's money and help them eliminate disasters. I won't stop until I'm dead." Looking at the Dark Profound King's injuries, he probably won't dare to come out and cause trouble during this period of time. Jiang Chen joked. Without the Dark Profound King, the remaining people in the Dark God Palace are easy to deal with. Luing had a strange expression when she heard that. She asked tentatively, "Don't tell me, you're still thinking of finding trouble with the Dark God Palace?" Although the Dark Profound King was seriously injured and needed a long period of seclusion to heal his injuries. However, the Dark Profound King wasn't the only expert in the Dark God Palace. Furthermore, according to Ultimate Shadow Sect's intelligence, there was another supreme god in the Dark God Palace. Other than this supreme god, the Dark God Palace also had many master gods and 2 ancient god kings. Luing couldn't understand. With Jiang Chen's current strength, what right did he have to find trouble with the Dark God Palace? It was already good enough that they didn't find trouble with him now. "Who told you that I'm going to find the Dark God Palace?" Jiang Chen joked. "Among the 36 master gods that ambushed me back then, it wasn't just the Light Palace and the Dark God Palace." "You mean, you're going to attack the forces of the other master gods?" Lu Ying's expression froze, and she advised, "Calm down. Now that you've messed with the Dark God Palace, the other master gods are already on guard. If you go now, they might be prepared. If you go, you'll be walking right into their trap." Of course, Jiang Chen understood this, but so what? Jiang Chen knew that if he were to fight head-on, he definitely wouldn't be able to do it with his current strength. However, the key point was, why did he have to fight head-on? Just like when the 36 master gods tried to kill him back then, didn't they attack him secretly and ambush him? "I'm proficient in formations, runes, restrictions, boundaries." Jiang Chen looked at Luing with a faint smile and asked, "If I were to attack secretly, how many people do you think can stop me?" Luing was stunned when she heard that. She looked at Jiang Chen's smile and shuddered as though she had noticed something. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to drag my Ultimate Shadow Sect down with you?" Luing said in a low voice. "What do you mean by dragging you down with me? I'm helping Ultimate Shadow Sect make a fortune," Jiang Chen said seriously. "You provide the information, and I'm in charge of attacking. When the time comes, I'll split the profits with Ultimate Shadow Sect." "Oh? There's such a good deal?" Luing raised her eyebrows. She wouldn't believe Jiang Chen so easily. "The premise is, Ultimate Shadow Sect has to protect me secretly," Jiang Chen said. Luing knew that this wasn't so simple, but it wasn't complicated either. As long as Ultimate Shadow Sect could ensure Jiangchen's safety, this deal could be done. After what you've done to Black Province and Xian Province, I'm afraid we can't do it anymore. Luing analyzed. Which Master God is your next target? When she said that, Jiangchen looked at Luing strangely and asked, Did I tell you that I'm not going to continue looking for the Dark God Palace? Ah? Luing was stunned, and her eyes almost popped out. Brother! Please stop messing around. You've just looted the Dark God Palace and placed a bounty to heavily injure the Dark Mystic King. Now you want to mess with the Dark God Palace? Aren't you looking for death? Now, when the people of the Dark God Palace see you, they can't wait to eat you alive. They all thought that I would leave this place and avoid the Dark God Palace. Jiangchen joked. But that's what they thought. If I were to go against what they thought, which faction do you think would be the best to do it now? This is the Dark Divine Palace? Luing was shocked. She gave it a second thought and found Jiangchen was right. But you've already looted the Dark God Palace's inner and outer treasure vaults. What good things can there be inside? Luing asked doubtfully. The Dark God Palace, one of the top factions, if they only have these 2 treasure vaults, isn't it too shabby? Jiangchen muttered. Do you think Dark God Palace has other treasure vaults? Chapter 1008. A top force that had been passed down for several eras, and even had a godly venerable level expert in charge. Its foundation was extremely deep. Jiangchen didn't believe it. How could the Dark Divine Palace only have 2 treasure vaults? One had to know that Jiangchen had swept through the things stolen from the Dark Shrine. Other than the Heaven-grade tidal power and the 9-turn heavenly dew, the other things were average. At least, they were not worthy of the identity of the Dark Shrine. Therefore, Jiangchen suspected that somewhere in the Dark Shrine, there was another treasure vault. And that treasure vault was the foundation of the Dark Shrine. If he could loot the Dark Shrine's foundation treasure vault, that would be great. In fact, the Dark God Palace might even collapse because of this. Zhuang's sect has also been passed down for several eras, and has a deep foundation. They should have quite a lot of information, right? Jiangchen said softly. Send someone to ask around and see if you can find out where the Dark Shrine's foundation treasure vault is. The foundation treasure vault definitely has it. Luing was also very certain, but stealing the foundation treasure vault was too important. If it was not handled well, it would implicate Zhuang's sect. Although Zhuang's sect was strong, they did not want to provoke a top force like the Dark Shrine. I just asked Zhuang's sect to find out information, and didn't ask you to do it personally. Even if something happens, I can take it on myself, Jiangchen said. As he spoke, Jiangchen suddenly thought of someone, young Master Zhu Ming. Young Master Zhu Ming, as the young master of Farewell Valley, had a lot of power and status in Farewell Valley. And Farewell Valley's strongest point was not combat power, nor was it formations, but it was the intelligence network. It could be said that Farewell Valley's intelligence network was the strongest in the entire divine world of 9 heavens. There was no other. Go to Farewell Valley and find Zhu Ming. Ask him for help, Jiangchen said. With Farewell Valley's intelligence network, it should be quite easy to find the Dark Shrine's foundation treasure vault. Then, if we really steal the Dark Shrine's foundation treasure vault, how do we split it? Luing asked. Equally, Jiangchen said with a smile. All right. Luing nodded. In the end, Luing left again. As for Jiangchen, he continued to stay here and set up a formation. He cultivated in peace and quietly waited for news from Luing. Time slowly passed. Ever since the Dark Mystic King was heavily injured, the entire Dark God Palace fell into silence for 3 days. The people of the Dark God Hall were furious, but more than that, they were terrified. After all, the Dark God Hall had lost its backbone with the Patriarch severely injured. At this time, if an enemy came, how could the Dark God Hall resist without the Dark Mystic King? Moreover, they all saw the previous battle. The Dark Mystic King's injuries weren't light, his life aura declining, almost dying. Without 300 to 500 years, it would be difficult to recover from this injury. Everyone, don't worry. Our Dark God Hall has a deep foundation and many healing medicines. The Xian King Patriarch's injuries will be healed very soon. In the end, the current Hall Master of the Dark God Palace stood out with a calm expression. Hall Master, the 2 treasuries of the Dark God Palace have been emptied. Someone muttered. How can there be any healing medicines left? Not to mention healing medicines, even the cultivation resources for the disciples are gone. Someone smiled bitterly and said, even the most basic godly stones, the Dark God Palace doesn't have much left. Hearing that, the Hall Master of the Dark God Palace chuckled and said, the inner and outer treasuries are just part of the foundation of the Dark God Palace. The true foundation isn't here. Everyone, don't worry. The Patriarch will definitely come out of seclusion in less than 10 days. At that time, we will search the entire continent of the 9 heavens to find that bastard Tianqin. Seeing that their Hall Master was so confident, the higher-ups of the Dark God Palace didn't have any objections and heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, someone asked if the Dark God Palace had any other treasuries. Where were they? However, the Hall Master was very tight-lipped and didn't tell anyone. He only said that the treasuries of the Dark God Palace weren't in the Dark God Palace. Reliable information? The treasuries of the Dark God Palace aren't in the Dark God Palace? Are you sure? On this day, the people sent by the Jewing sect and the Farewell Valley found out the news and immediately reported back. On this day, the Farewell Valley secretly sent a group of masters to various places in the He province. They explored the mountains and rivers and also looked for various small worlds. Some people were born with magical powers and knew how to search for dragons and tombs. They directly used a compass to deduce the situation of the He province. They wanted to find some clues. Finally, on the 5th day, in the eastern part of the He province, on a barren plain, someone found some clues. This place was barren, and there wasn't a trace of human habitation within 10,000 miles. There wasn't even a single bird or insect. However, the chi of heaven and earth here was extremely dense. In the center of the plain, there was a deceiving heaven array which concealed the chi of this place. Looking carefully, at this moment, the hidden array was operating and there were seals and enchantments, which were slowly disintegrating. There are seals and enchantments here. And it's in the He province. Could it be that the treasuries of the Dark God Palace are here? It's very possible. Look, the seals and enchantments here are disintegrating. I think the Dark God Palace wants to open the treasuries here. It's most likely here. The Dark God King is seriously injured and they need to open the treasuries to take some healing pills. In the end, the group of masters in the Farewell Valley confirmed and reported this matter. Half a day later, Jiangchen and Luing received the news and quietly came to the plain. Furthermore, young Master Zhu Ming, who had not been seen for a long time, also came. This guy was in high spirits the entire way and told Jiangchen that he had become the Valley Master of the Farewell Valley. Of course, most of the credit was due to Jiangchen. One had to know that because of the birth of the 9 depths, young Master Zhu Ming and the rest had almost died in the 9 Skies court. In the end, Jiangchen had protected him and used the power of the 9 Skies court to help young Master Zhu Ming successfully ascend to the position. Now, after this guy became the Valley Master, he seemed to have let go of himself and walked with a light tone. You don't know that there are all kinds of people in my Farewell Valley. This time, if it weren't for the talents in my Farewell Valley, would you have found the location of the Dark God Palace's treasury? Along the way, young Master Zhu Ming bragged about his family's power and was in high spirits. However, Lu Ying's words made young Master Zhu Ming stunned. You are the Valley Master of Farewell Valley after all. Why is your cultivation so low? Lu Ying glanced sideways and teased. Based on your cultivation speed, you will be caught up by Jiangchen soon. Young Master Zhu Ming opened his mouth, his face full of resentment, but he was powerless to refute. You say it as if having a high cultivation is useful. Jiangchen glanced at Lu Ying and teased. Why don't you spar with me, a upper sky god? Lu Ying's face darkened as she gave Jiangchen the middle finger in her heart. Chapter 1009. The treasury of the Dark God Palace was here. Jiangchen and the rest observed for a long time and finally confirmed it. Moreover, there were many formations and restrictions here, as well as many boundaries. Under normal circumstances, this place could be said to be unbreakable. Even if an emperor god came, he might not be able to break through this place. However, it was different now. The dark mystic monarch was heavily injured, and the Dark God Palace needed to open their hidden treasury to take out some healing items. Because of that, the spirit formations, restrictions, and even the spirit formations were slowly disintegrating. To be more precise, they were opening. Jiangchen did not make a move. He knew that the formations and restrictions here were not ordinary. He could only wait for him to open them. If anyone else interfered, the Dark God Palace would definitely sense it. Then, he could only wait. Of course, he could not just wait. What good things do you think are in the treasury of the Dark God Palace? Young Master Juming asked, his eyes shining. Could there be some treasure that can let me be reborn? One should know that young Master Juming's talent in cultivation was not very good. Otherwise, his cultivation would not be so low. Young Master Juming knew that with his talent, unless he was reborn and changed his Tao foundation and origin, he wouldn't be able to improve his talent at all. However, one's foundation and origin were innate and destined. How could they be changed so easily? Ordinary treasures in the world could only change one's foundation and origin. They could not change one's foundation and origin. Only those top-notch heavenly treasures could do that. That kind of treasure was extremely rare in the world. Even a powerful force like the Farewell Valley couldn't find a single one. In fact, even those top forces might not necessarily have such a thing. If there really is such a treasure, I'll give it to you, Jiangchen said. Will there be more 9-turn heavenly dew in here? Lu Ying looked expectant. It was true that he had used the bottle of 9 reincarnations dew Jiangchen had given him to offer a reward for Jiangchen. There was also a supreme god-level ancestor in the Extreme Shadow sect. The 9-turn heavenly dew was extremely precious to the Extreme Shadow sect. Lu Ying thought that if there was another bottle, the Extreme Shadow sect might be able to give birth to an emperor god. By then, the Extreme Shadow sect would be able to shine brightly. They would not even need to hide their sect and could walk in the light. There is 9 reincarnations heavenly dew in both the internal and external treasure vaults of the Dark Divine Palace. If there is really it in this hidden treasure vault, its quality will definitely be better than 9 reincarnations heavenly dew, Jiangchen said seriously. If there is really it, I can give it to you. Then, what should I do now? Young Master Juming asked with a hint of worry in his eyes. After all, this was Black Province, the Dark God Palace. It would be more dangerous if they continued to stay here. If he was discovered by the people from the Dark God Palace, even if he did not die, he would lose a layer of skin. There are many restrictions in the treasury. If you want to open the treasury, you'll need the Dark God Hall's special methods and abilities, Jiangchen said. Now let's wait here for the people from the Dark God Palace to come and open the treasury. Then when the people from the Dark God Palace come to open the treasury, the cultivation of the person who will open the treasury should not be weak. At the very least, he should be an over-god, Lu Ying said in a low voice. Can the 3 of us win? Who said we are going to fight for it? Jiangchen joked. He waved his hand and said, Stop talking. I will use the power of the myriad heavenly lamp to help you hide your aura. Then, let's start setting up the array. When Lu Ying and young Master Juming heard that, their hearts trembled. They knew that Jiangchen was going to trick them again. Your attainments in array formations are really high, Lu Ying muttered. Then, under Jiangchen's guidance, the 3 of them split up and used 5 days to set up layers of arrays. Also, Jiangchen used the myriad heavenly lamp and 3 streaks of chaotic aura to hide the arrays. He even set up the deceiving array. When everything was ready, Jiang Chen and the two of them hid in the void and began to wait quietly. 9 Heavens Death Array, all life equal restriction, lightless barrier. Which one of them is not a top array or restriction? With these things set up, even a Peak King god would be doomed. Lu Ying and young Master Zhu Ming felt a chill in their hearts. They were full of fear towards Jiang Chen. They did not know how many arrays, barriers, and restrictions Jiang Chen had mastered. In short, he was too scary. If they offended Jiang Chen, he might secretly set up an array one day and wait for them to jump in. At this moment, the two of them sighed. For some reason, they suddenly sympathized with the Dark God Palace and the Dark Mystic King. If the Dark Mystic King had not taken action back then, Jiang Chen would still be dealing with the forces of the Light Master God. The Dark God Palace really asked for it, Lu Ying muttered. In the past, Jiang Chen had destroyed 2 factions that belonged to the Light Lord God, and news of this matter had surely spread. But why did the other masters not help the Light Master God? The reason was simple. They all knew that Jiang Chen was not to be trifled with. Even the Darkness Master God and the Darkness Master God did not take action. They were all from the Dark God Palace. From this, it could be seen how strong Jiang Chen was in the hearts of the 36 masters. But who would have thought that the Darkness Master God and the Darkness Master God did not take action, but their own ancestor, the Dark Mystic King? This was great. The losses were huge. He's here! This guy looks so familiar. 10 days later, the array around the treasury disappeared. In the center of the plains, a cave that led underground appeared. It was also on this day that a man shrouded in black fog arrived. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression was strange. He stared at the man and muttered, "This guy is seriously injured, and he's still running around? Maybe he's anxious to recover and wants to come and get the medicine himself." Lu Ying said softly. "That's right, it was the Dark Mystic King. This fool." Young Master Zhu Ming's expression was strange. Then, he became worried and asked, "Can the array that we set up suppress him?" "Don't worry, this guy is seriously injured. His strength is less than 10%, Jiang Chen said. "When he opens the door to the treasury, we'll take action. Tian Chen, wait until I recover. I won't let you off easily." At this moment, the Dark Mystic King stood at the entrance of the treasury and roared furiously. He was so angry during this period of time. "Wait until I recover to my peak, I'll turn you into ashes." After a few roars, the Dark Mystic King kept forming seals with his hands, and the door to the treasury was finally opened. However, at the instant the door to the treasury was opened, rays of profound light suddenly erupted from the surroundings, and a large amount of divine light fell down, drowning the dark profound king. "Go!" Jiang Chen shouted. He formed seals with his hands and activated all the arrays in the treasury. Chapter 10:10. Formations, restrictions, and barriers were activated in an instant. Divine light burned like flames, and a terrifying attack appeared out of nowhere, drowning the Dark Mystic King. "Who?" The Dark Mystic King was shocked and furious. He never thought that someone would be so bold as to commit murder here. "It's you, Tian Chen!" After a few breaths, when he saw Jiang Chen walk out of the void, the Dark Mystic King's face darkened. He was struggling with all his might, and the power in his body erupted like a flood. However, he was heavily injured, and he was suppressed by many formations, restrictions, and barriers. He couldn't break free for a while. Moreover, the formations here were violent, and attacks bombarded his body like a rain of swords, causing his body to tremble. Blood dyed his clothes red in a few breaths' time. "Thank you, Dark God Hall." Jiang Chen smiled as he walked past the Dark Mystic King, then swaggered into the treasury. After a short while, Jiang Chen walked out of the treasury, and waved his hand at the Dark Mystic King. He said, "The Dark Divine Palace is too courteous. You gave me all of your hidden treasures. I don't know how I should thank you." As he spoke, Jiang Chen frowned, as if he was seriously considering it. After a few breaths' time, Jiangchen suddenly smiled and said, "In order to express my gratitude to Dark God Hall, I've decided to give you a great killing formation." "You! I'm going to kill you!" the Dark Mystic King roared. However, he was trapped by the formation and couldn't deal with Jiangchen at all. Moreover, Jiangchen manipulated the tactical formation around him as soon as he finished speaking. He even merged these tactical formations together to form a dreadful killing formation. The killing formation suppressed down, and a riot of divine light fell. It was an extremely terrifying attack. Boom! Boom! Amidst the explosions, Jiangchen's smile grew brighter. However, Jiangchen's heart clenched very quickly. It was because the Dark Mystic King seemed to be really angry. He didn't care about his injuries and actually burned his source energy. Boom! In a short 3 breaths' time, more than 10 formations were destroyed, and even the barrier that trapped the Dark Mystic King was collapsing. "Are you crazy? Can you still survive after burning your source while heavily injured?" Jiangchen asked. "I must kill you today!" The Dark Xian King was completely enraged. He had been blinded by his anger, and wanted to kill Jiangchen today at all costs. However, Jiangchen smiled mockingly. He then stepped into the void and activated the teleportation array that he had prepared a long time ago. Then, a streak of light flashed across the void. Jiangchen, Luing, and young Master Zhu Ming disappeared from the scene. Pooh! At this moment, blood sprayed out incessantly from the Dark Mystic Monarch's mouth. It wasn't just because of his heavy injuries, it was also because of his rage. "Tian Chen! If I don't kill you, I swear I'm not human!" Half a day later, an important piece of news swept through the entire 9 Heavens divine world. The Dark Mystic King was heavily injured and on the verge of death. The Dark God Palace's treasury had been robbed clean. Moreover, everyone knew that it was Jiangchen who did it. Suddenly, there were people who admired Jiangchen. There were also people who secretly mocked Jiangchen, thinking that he was destined to not live long after doing such a thing. There were even people who said that the Dark God Palace was going to send out all their forces to kill Jiangchen. However, what surprised everyone was that the Dark God Palace chose to seal the mountain on the same day. "The Dark God Palace has suffered a great loss this time. The Dark Mystic King is heavily injured and on the verge of death. The other hierarch ancestor of the Dark God Palace is also in deep sleep. The Dark God Palace has no choice but to seal the mountain to protect themselves. A top force was actually destroyed by Tianchen." Many people sighed and were amazed by Jiangchen's methods. He was too strong, too deceitful. However, there were more people who were clear-headed. They knew that the Dark God Palace, as a top force, would not be destroyed so easily. As long as the Dark Mystic King and the other hierarch ancestor were not dead, the Dark God Palace would not fall. However, the Dark God Palace should not be able to rise in the near future. "Should we seal the mountain too? Tianchen is too good at deceitful. Even the Dark God Palace was destroyed. Gather everyone and seal the mountain." On this day, the other overgods were also panicking. They did not have a top force like the Dark God Palace behind them. Now that even the Dark God Palace was destroyed, their forces would be in an even worse state if they encountered Jiangchen. In fact, it was very likely that they would be completely destroyed. They did not have any doubts as they knew that Jiangchen's formation skills were enough to destroy any of their forces. It can't be? More than half of the 36 overgods have chosen to seal the mountain? At the same time, in Farewell Valley, Jiangchen also received the news. He was a little confused and secretly wondered if those overgods had to be so nervous. "You destroyed the Dark God Palace. How can the other overgods not be afraid?" Luing said impatiently. "More than half of the 36 peak overgods do not have a top force behind them. Then who should I go after next?" Jiangchen mumbled and then realized that he had used the wrong words. He said seriously, "Who should I seek revenge from next? All right. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's see what's in the Dark God Palace's treasury first." Lu Ying urged with a fiery expression. Young Master Zhu Ming also looked at Jiang Chen with anticipation. There should be a lot of things. I didn't look carefully and took them all, Jiang Chen said. Then, Jiang Chen waved his hand and placed the items he took from the treasury in front of the two of them. In an instant, two small mountains appeared in front of the three of them. Divine light filled the air, and they could even hear the sound of the great path. It was like the ancient and obscure chanting of scriptures. Lu Ying's eyes were sharp. She immediately saw a bottle among the treasures. The aura emanating from it was the 9 turns heavenly dew. It's not the 9 turns heavenly dew. It's the 9 heavens heavenly dew, Lu Ying exclaimed. The 9 heavens heavenly dew was the evolved version of the 9 turns heavenly dew. It took 100,000 years to brew and 1,000,000 years to condense. It could only be consumed after 10 million years. It's almost ready to be consumed. Jiang Chen also exclaimed. The 9 heavens heavenly dew had been stored for who knew how many eras. Looking at it now, it was not far from being ready to be consumed. Jiang Chen kept his word and gave the 9 heavens heavenly dew to Lu Ying. He said, You can't consume it for now. But judging from the aura it emits, you should be able to consume it in 3 to 5 years. What's there to be afraid of in 3 to 5 years? My grand elder has lived for a few eras. 3 to 5 years is just a blink of an eye. Lu Ying was excited. One should know that the effects of the 9 heavens heavenly dew were heaven-defying. Once consumed, not only could one become an emperor god immediately, but one could also condense an emperor god's past skill and become an upper-level emperor god. This thing was not seen and unobtainable for thousands of years. Chapter 10-11. The 9 heaven returning dew was given to Lu Ying, and this guy was extremely happy. After all, with this thing, it was equivalent to having another upper divine lord. What is this? After a few breaths of time, everyone saw a green lamp among the pile of treasures. Its appearance was actually similar to Jiang Chen's myriad change heavenly lamp. However, this green lamp was not lit, and there were cracks on its body. It was damaged. When Jiang Chen saw this green lamp for the first time, his mind was moved, and he thought that it was really his myriad change heavenly lamp. But after carefully examining it, Jiang Chen frowned and said, It's just an ordinary green lamp. There are runes on it, and some lines. It looks like coordinates. Lu Ying held the green lamp and looked at it, then his expression changed greatly. Young Master Zhu Ming at the side also seemed to have thought of something. He snatched the green lamp, looked at the runes and lines on it, and exclaimed, Coordinates! It's definitely coordinates. Coordinates? What are they? Jiang Chen asked. Have you heard that in a certain era in the 6 realms, a group of cultivators went to other places, as if they were on an expedition? Young Master Zhu Ming said. According to the records, those cultivators were extremely powerful, and were called the ancestors of cultivation. There were records that those people went to an indescribable place. No one knew if they were going to war or something else. But one thing is for sure, if those people are still alive, they will return. At this point, Lu Ying nodded and said, However, the distance between the 2 places is very far, so those ancestors left behind coordinates to guide them back. Then, this green lamp is a coordinate? Jiang Chen was astonished, staring at the lines and runes on the green lamp. After careful observation, it was indeed like a map. Moreover, these runes and lines combined together, it was like a mark. My absolute shadow sect has a withered tree that has existed for a long time. The withered branches also have similar runes and lines, as well as a mark, but it is different from the mark on this green lamp. Lu Ying said. Every coordinate represents a different ancestor. This should be the location of an ancestor from the Dark God Palace. Young Master Zhu Ming said. It's hard to imagine how terrifying their cultivation is. They're probably at the peak of cultivation. He might have surpassed the great Tao and broken free from the shackles, Lu Ying said. At this moment, Jiang Chen couldn't help but take the lamp after hearing these words. Then, he formed a seal with both hands and added layers of seals on the lamp, cutting off its connection with the outside world. Cough, cough. That ancestor of the Dark God Palace shouldn't come back for the time being. Jiangchen giggled. If he comes back, how are we going to live? Perhaps he's already dead. Luing said. The lamp is connected to the ancestor of the Dark God Hall. The fact that the lamp is cracked means that the ancestor of the Dark God Hall has met with an accident. Perhaps he is dead or seriously injured. Just like the ancient tree in my Absolute Shadow sect. It used to be luxuriant, but one day, it suddenly withered. Even the mark on it dimmed and almost disappeared. Saying this, young Master Zhu Ming's expression became serious. After thinking for a while, he said, Actually, many people don't want those ancestors to come back. Why? Jiangchen asked. Because we're not sure. Young Master Zhu Ming said. What those ancestors will do after they come back and what kind of effect they will have on this world is not certain. What if they come back to destroy the 6 realms? Jiangchen couldn't believe what he had just heard. If those ancestors really wanted to destroy the 6 realms, they could have done so before leaving, before they went on the expedition. Why wait until they came back? But since young Master Zhu Ming said this, there must be a reason. I don't know the specifics, but a great sage once deduced and left behind a prophecy. When those ancestors come back, the 6 realms will no longer exist. Thus, right now, many of the top powers are secretly searching for the items in these coordinates. They are either destroying them or sealing them. Young Master Zhu Ming said. The 6 realms are too complicated. Luing sighed. Sometimes, she felt like an ant. When she looked up at the sky, all she saw was light and shadow. Seal them first, Jiangchen said softly. As for whether those ancestors can come back or not, this is not something we can decide. But when he said this, Jiangchen's heart was not calm. He thought of the evil dominator in Eternal Fortress. Jiangchen was sure that the evil dominator was definitely an ancestor. Before he came back, he was an amiable old monk. But after he came back, everything changed. Not only did his personality change, but his strength also increased by a large margin. Jiangchen felt a chill in his heart when he thought about it. This was because he did not know what realm the evil dominator was at. Previously, Jiangchen thought that the evil dominator was a master god, a peak master god, infinitely close to a divine king. But as time passed, Jiangchen witnessed the strength of a supreme god. He suddenly realized that the evil dominator's strength was far above that of a supreme god. Then, what was the evil dominator's cultivation level? Divine Emperor? Or even surpassing the Divine Emperor? But there was one thing that Jiangchen was sure of. After the evil dominator returned, he did not harm the 6 realms. Instead, he stayed in Eternal Fortress to guard it. When the ancestors come back, the 6 realms will no longer exist. Jiangchen thought to himself. He felt that this was a rumor and could not be trusted. Don't worry about that. Let's split the money first, Jiangchen said. In the end, the 3 of them did not pursue the matter of the ancestors. They started to split the loot. Just as the 3 of them were splitting the loot, in a certain space-time, in a certain place, a living being that had been sitting cross-legged for countless eras suddenly opened his eyes. At the instant his eyes opened and closed, the great Tao around him collapsed, and the world around him collapsed. Boundless light shot into the heavens and illuminated this world. The coordinates that I left in the 6 realms. Why did they disappear? The living being frowned with a puzzled expression. Then, he acted and began to deduce. After a few breaths, the living being's face darkened. His unchanging heart wavered slightly at this moment. A bunch of useless juniors. They actually lost the coordinates that I left in the 6 realms and were sealed by someone. The living being gritted his teeth in anger. Without the coordinates, it would be too difficult for him to return to the 6 realms. It was even very likely that he would be lost in the endless space-time, lose his direction, and even lose himself. Tianqin? Divine King of several eras? Could it be him? After a few breaths, the living being seemed to have thought of something. A lone boat appeared under his feet and carried him into the chaotic space-time, heading toward an unknown place. At the same time, in another distant space-time, someone was walking in the chaos. The laws around him were overturned, and the surroundings were ethereal. But at this moment, a great Tao suddenly appeared under his feet, leading straight to the distance. Chapter 10:12. This person's entire body was covered in a chaotic aura. Divine light shone from his body, and the sun, moon, and stars floated under his feet. In front of him was a path that pierced through time and space, leading forward as if to welcome him. So I'm so close to the ancestral land. It's time to go back, the person said softly, then stepped on the path and disappeared. At the same time, similar scenes appeared in several corners of the world. Cracks appeared in front of some people, and starlight shone from within the cracks, like a bright lamp guiding the way. Some people stepped on auspicious clouds and shuttled through the void, flying towards the place they wanted to go. Regardless of whether it was the great thousand world or the living beings of the six realms, none of them noticed. At this moment, in Farewell Valley, Jiang Chen and the other two had finished dividing the spoils. The three of them were very satisfied and happy. Especially young Master Ju Ming, who had obtained a rare elixir that could transform his foundation and origin. What are we going to do next? You're not going to look for those overgods, are you? Lu Ying frowned and said worriedly. We've caused such a big commotion this time, those overgods will be on guard. Not for now. Jiang Chen smiled and said, I've obtained so many treasures, it's enough for them to use, and it's enough for me too. Then stay in Farewell Valley? Young Master Ju Ming asked. My identity is too special. Many people are keeping an eye on me. If I stay in the Farewell Valley, I'm afraid I'll bring you unnecessary trouble. Jiang Chen frowned. He thought about it carefully, and a person popped into his mind. It's time to go see her, Jiang Chen said softly, and did not say where he was going. After bidding farewell to Lu Ying, he left Farewell Valley alone. A day later, in a small tavern in Luo Tian City in Luo State. Luo State was not very famous in the Nine Heavens divine realm, because there were not many top forces and there were not many experts. In the eyes of the world, Luo State's overall strength was considered to be at the bottom of the entire divine realm. However, that was only the world's view of Luo State. In the eyes of many, especially those old monsters who had lived for several generations, Luo State's waters were very deep, not shallower than Tsang State's. There were rumors that many old divine kings lived in seclusion here, enjoying a peaceful time, not participating in the struggles of the world. There were also people who said that there was a flourishing divine emperor presiding over the Luo State. However, he had never taken action unless it concerned the survival of the Luo State. Only then would the divine emperor take action. However, these were just rumors. According to the guesses of those old monsters who had lived for several eras, although Luo Prefecture might not have a god emperor, it definitely had a few god kings. Furthermore, they were all at the pinnacle level. Therefore, under normal circumstances, no one would behave atrociously in Luo State. Even ultimate god almighties would come to Luo State to have fun and would not cause trouble there. Other than these, the most famous tea in Luo Prefecture was Luotian's Luo Tian tea. Many people traveled thousands of miles to Luo just to drink a pot of Luotian's tea. There were people who had drunk it before, and they lamented that this tea was comparable to a divine medicine. There was even a godly king who came here at the end of his lifespan. He originally wanted to retire, but because he drank a cup of Luotian's tea, he lived a second life and regained his glory. Luotian, is she still making tea? At this moment, Jiang Chen entered the small tavern. The scenery here was no different from before. The only difference was that the waiter in this small tavern had changed. Jiang Chen remembered very clearly that when he was Tianqin in his previous life, he came here to drink tea not long after he entered the divine realm of the Nine Heavens. However, who would have thought that he did not have enough money? After eating a free meal, he fought with the waiter here. The result was obvious. Jiang Chen was suppressed on the spot. After that, if not for Luotian's intervention, Jiang Chen's cultivation would have been crippled. Back then, Luotian wanted to help Jiangchen for a very simple reason. She felt that Jiangchen was too weak, that was all. Jiangchen had always been brooding over this matter. Therefore, when he became a godly king, he came here again to buy Luotian's tavern. However, in the end, he did not succeed. As for what happened, Jiangchen did not want to talk about it. He just felt that it was very embarrassing. "Waiter, give me a pot of Luotian's tea." At this moment, Jiangchen found a random seat and called for the waiter. "Sorry, sir, Luotian is not making tea today." The new waiter came over with a smile and a teapot in his hand. "Do you want to drink this?" "What is this?" Jiangchen was puzzled. "Luotian makes tea every day. Why is she not making tea today?" After Luotian became famous, she had lived here and made tea every day. This was a practice and habit. Wind could not change it, and thunder could not change it. However, today, "Sir, you may not know this, but Luotian is about to get married. She will not make tea for this period of time. She may not make tea in the future," the waiter explained. As soon as he said this, before Jiangchen could speak, the others in the tavern could not sit still. Some people deliberately came here to drink a cup of Luotian's tea. However, after hearing the waiter's words, these people who came from thousands of miles away naturally felt uncomfortable. "Go and call Luotian here. No matter what, this young master wants to drink a pot of tea today. Waiter, we came here from thousands of miles away. It's fine if we can't drink tea, but Luotian should at least let us see him, right?" "That's right. Tea is a small matter. We want to see him." Hearing these people's words, the waiter smiled bitterly and said awkwardly, "I'm just a waiter who does odd jobs. Your requests are really difficult for me." As he said this, a trace of disdain flashed in the waiter's eyes. Jiangchen also smiled bitterly. These people were not here to drink tea. They were clearly here to see Luotian. Whether Luotian's tea tasted good or not, Jiangchen really did not know because he did not know how to taste tea. However, Jiangchen knew very well how Luotian looked like. There were two flowers in the ninth heaven god realm. One was above the clouds, side by side with the sun, the moon goddess. The other was known as the spirit of Luo River, which was Luotian. Thinking back, when the moon goddess fell because of Jiangchen, it caused a sensation in the entire ninth heaven god realm. Those men who admired the moon goddess cried and wailed for a long time because of this. Fortunately, there was still the moon goddess. However, now that they heard that the moon goddess was about to get married, how could this group of people sit still? As the saying goes, if I can't have you, I can at least take a look. If you don't even let me take a look, then I won't agree to it. After the moon goddess fell, the title of the number one beauty of the ninth heaven god realm fell on Luotian's head. Someone stood up and said in a deep voice, "We came because we admire Luotian. Even if we don't drink tea, we'll be satisfied with just one look." That's right. We naturally have no objections to the moon goddess getting married, but we have to see who she marries, so that we can check. Chapter 10:13. Everyone in the divine world of the nine firmaments knew about Luotian's beauty. Now that Luotian was about to get married, those who adored her felt very uncomfortable. Moreover, many people were confused. Since when did the moon goddess like someone? Isn't she just a tea maker? Look at how excited you are, Jiangchen complained inside. In his eyes, Luotian was just the proprietress of a small tavern, a tea maker. Apart from her good looks, there was nothing special about her. "Everyone, no ordinary person is worthy of Luotian's beauty," the waiter said. "Right now, the person Luotian is about to marry is the young master of the Pingtian clan behind the Glittering Jewel Academy." "The young master of the Pingtian clan? The one who's as famous as the world's edge?" At that moment, the group of people was stunned. Indeed, they did not want to see Luotian get married. However, the person Luotian was about to marry was far too extraordinary. The young master of the Pingtian clan had a noble status. Moreover, his talent was so great that it could be said that he was rarely seen since ancient times. A person like that was indeed worthy of Luotian. However, there were also people who were furious. They could not help but say, "Did the Pingtian clan force Luotian?" As soon as these words came out, it immediately received the agreement of many people. After all, ever since Luotian had opened the tavern, they had never heard of her liking anyone. Normally, Luotian was very elegant and otherworldly. She was untainted by the world, like an ethereal fairy. Everyone found it very difficult to imagine why such an ethereal person would suddenly want to get married. Even Jiang Chun was stunned. He thought that this matter was rather strange. In the past, Jiang Chun and Luotian had a good relationship. When the two of them communicated, Luotian had told Jiang Chun that she was from the Luoshui Dao. The purity of the water meant that her heart was pure. She did not care about the world and abandoned all distracting thoughts. How could she get married? Troubled times are coming. Luotian is a weak woman. She has to find a home. The waiter sighed. The creatures of the boundless universe are coming, and so are the creatures of the underworld. Everyone wants to live, even Luotian is no exception. But there's no need to get married. Yeah. As long as Luotian nods and comes to my sect, I will protect her. When the waiter heard this, a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. These people's identities were not bad, and their cultivations were also high, but compared to the peaceful Sky clan, what were they? At the same time, the waiter knew a little about Luotian. Marrying the young master of the Pingtian clan this time was Luotian's own decision. The Pingtian clan did not force her. However, the waiter was also very curious as to why Luotian would make such a decision. Could it be that he had some difficulties? Waiter, serve the tea. Suddenly, a cold, emotionless voice rang out from the second floor of the tavern. The second floor of the tavern did not receive customers because the second floor was Luotian's residence. Now that the voice had rang out from the second floor, the first floor immediately fell silent. Everyone looked towards the stairs, wanting to see Luotian's appearance. However, Luotian did not come down. Instead, she ordered the waiter to serve a pot of tea to Jiang Chun. There were so many people in the tavern, so giving Jiang Chun a pot of tea naturally attracted everyone's attention. Tian Chun? Jiang Chun? Only now did everyone notice Jiang Chun. After all, everyone's attention had been drawn away by Luotian's marriage, so they paid no attention to a measly god. Tian Chun, you still have the guts to come out? You destroyed 2 organizations under the Radiant Overgod, looted the Dark God Hall, and even offered a bounty to assassinate the Dark Mystic King. Why do you still have the guts to come out? Everyone had strange expressions, and some of them even emitted killing intent. I'm here today to drink tea, Jiang Chun said softly as he poured himself a cup of tea. After taking a sip, a fierce look flashed across his eyes as he said, "If you want to fight, I don't mind stretching my legs." Humph. You're just an upper heavenly god. We've long heard that when you destroyed the 2 organizations under the Radiant Overgod, you asked for help. Later on, when you looted the Dark God Hall, you used formations. What kind of true power do you have? In our eyes, you're too weak in this life. Among the people present, there were a few people from the organizations under the 36 Overgods. These people's words were extremely unpleasant, and their killing intent was obvious. Moreover, as they spoke, they walked towards Jiang Chun. Lady Boss, I'm here to drink tea. I'm a guest, Jiang Chun said with a smile. As a guest, I'm being beaten up in your tavern. Shouldn't you come out and intervene? Is it my turn to intervene? On the second floor, Luotian's cold voice rang out. The great deity Tian Chun doesn't need the help of a small overgod like me. Jiang Chun was stunned for a moment, wondering why Luotian was different from before. In the past, although Luotian was cold and aloof, he wasn't so heartless. Especially back when Jiang Chun and Luotian were discussing the Tao, Luotian was quite enthusiastic. Now, what was going on? Why had his attitude changed so much? That's easy. Since Luotian isn't going to intervene, then, today, you don't have any formations or helpers. Let's see how you'll walk out of this tavern alive. In an instant, 2 overgods and a title god walked over and surrounded Jiang Chen. Then, the few of them attacked at the same time, and violent divine power surged like waves. That's it, Jiang Chen said softly. He didn't even get up. His palms struck across the air, and the sound of dragons and tigers instantly rang out. Then, a rose bloomed, and the shadow of a dragon followed. With a sweep, the few of them were instantly suppressed. I've said that I'm here to drink tea today. I don't want to fight, Jiang Chen said softly. However, if you can't tolerate me, then, today, you can also see blood. This guy, a higher heavenly god, can suppress a title god with a flick of his finger. Judging from his looks, he hasn't used his full strength yet. Maybe he can fight a master god. The people present weren't blind. They could tell that Jiang Chen's combat power was extraordinary. For a moment, no one dared to find trouble with Jiang Chen. After drinking this pot of tea, you can leave. Luoshan's voice rang out from the second floor again. It sounded like he was asking them to leave. However, to everyone's surprise, Jiang Chen frowned when he heard this. With a look of displeasure, he got up and walked toward the second floor. Sir! Seeing this, the waiter hurriedly stepped forward and stopped Jiang Chen. At the same time, someone stared at Jiang Chen and said coldly, Since the establishment of this small pub, no one except Luoshan has ever gone up to the second floor. This is the rule. Nonsense! I've been up there before. I even slept with her. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said, If you don't believe me, you can ask Luoshan. Back then, she and I were on the second floor, on her bed, drinking tea and discussing Tao. The one who was going to be married wasn't Weishan, but Luoshan. It was Luoshan. It was Luoshan. Important things must be said 3 times. Chapter 10-14. Drinking tea and discussing Taoism on Luoshan's bed? What the F***ck? The crowd was in an uproar. In everyone's hearts, Goddess Luoshan was pure and untainted by the mortal world. How could she bring a man into her boudoir? And even let him sit on her bed? Oh my God! It's bad enough that you messed with Yueshan, but I didn't expect you to do the same to Luoshan. Cries of agony filled the place, and some even clutched their chests, their hearts broken. When Jiang Chen heard this, his face darkened, and the corner of his mouth twitched. What the F***ck? Are you trying to stir up trouble? At this moment, Jiang Chen was too lazy to explain. He pushed the waiter aside and rushed up to the second floor. He kicked open the door to the second floor and saw an extremely beautiful person sitting on a rocking chair, leisurely drinking tea. This person was Luoshan. Aren't you going to explain yourself? At this moment, Jiang Chen walked up to Luoshan with a gloomy face, pulled out a chair and sat down beside him. Luoshan seemed to have known that Jiang Chen would do this, and was not surprised at all. He picked up his teacup, took a sip, and said calmly, I can't control the mouths of the people in this world. You can't control whether you're a man or a woman? Jiang Chen felt a chill in his heart. How could there be such a person in this world? Others might not know, but Jiang Chen knew very well. Luoshan, who was known to be second only to Yueshan in terms of looks, was a man. In the past, Jiang Chen even learned from Luoshan in person that this guy got tired of making tea and serving water in a tavern, so he found a rich female master god. That was how he was raised by her. But what Jiang Chen did not expect was that after so many years, the world still did not know that Luoshan was a man. Most importantly, Luoshan had never come forward to explain himself. Whether I'm a man or a woman, it's enough for me to know. Why do I have to explain it to others? Luoshan said lightly. They're the ones who are blind. They can't even differentiate between a man and a woman. Good. Let's not talk about this anymore. Then let's talk about it first. You're a king man, why are you getting married? Jiang Chen endured the chills and asked. Hearing this, Luoshan's eyes flashed with a trace of helplessness. A trace of sadness appeared on her beautiful face. She sighed and said, I have no choice. I just want to survive. Boom! Before Jiangchen could speak, someone rushed up and kicked open the door that had just been closed. Then, a group of people rushed in. When they saw Jiangchen sitting on the chair with a swagger, their hearts ached. Luotian! You're the #1 beauty in the divine realm of the 9 heavens. Can't you keep yourself clean? Although we are your admirers, but your behavior is too unacceptable. Many people scolded, but their tone was still gentle. Jiangchen! I don't care who you were in your previous life. In this life, you've recultivated. The Divine King's Godhead is no longer there. You have no identity. You're just a higher celestial god. How dare you sit together with Luotian? I want to fight you. The group of people seemed to have gone berserk. They could not accept that the goddess in their hearts was giving Jiangchen such special treatment. Hearing this, Jiangchen's face darkened. He stared at Luotian as if to say, "Shouldn't you explain yourself?" However, Luotian really did not explain. He slowly stood up. His jade-like hand that was fairer than a woman's gently waved in the air. Teacups landed in front of everyone. Since you're all here, you can drink tea here. I'll make an exception, Luotian said. This is Luotian's boudoir. We're so lucky. The goddess invited us to drink tea in her boudoir. The group of people was still furious, but after Luotian poured them a cup of tea they were fine. However, Jiangchen's face became more and more gloomy. Staring at Luotian, he even transmitted his voice to her. You should explain this to me quickly. I'm not taking the blame. Won't I die if I explain now? Luotian remained unperturbed. He secretly transmitted his voice to Jiangchen. I'm about to marry into the Pingtian clan. If I say I'm a man now, won't the Pingtian clan think I'm toying with them? Won't they skin me alive? Jiangchen became furious when he heard that. Since you know you can't afford to offend the Pingtian clan, why did you agree to marry the young master of the Pingtian clan? Is there something wrong with your head? However, what Luotian said next made Jiangchen understand Luotian's difficulties. In the past, Luotian was indeed unwilling to explain his gender. After all, these people could not even tell if he was a man or a woman, so what was the point of explaining? However, when he wanted to explain later on, it was already too late. Luotian controlled the Luo River in the divine world of the 9 firmaments. This was something everyone knew. This was because Luotian's original body was a droplet of Luo River that had gained sentience. As for Luo River, it flowed out from the great void. Its source was unknown, and its destination was unknown. Now Luotian told Jiangchen that the source of Luo River was in the netherworld. Now yin and yang were about to become chaotic. Once yin and yang lost their balance, the creatures of the netherworld could enter the world of the living without any scruples. However, this was not absolute. This was because if the creatures of the netherworld wanted to enter the world of the living, they had to cross Luo River. Luo River was also known as dead water. Living things could not cross it. Every creature that wanted to cross Luo River had to pay a great price. And now, the netherworld was about to attack the world of the living, so it was impossible for every creature to pay a great price to cross Luo River. Then, if they wanted to cross Luo River and enter the world of the living without paying any price, there was only one way. Fill up the great river of Luo River. Luotian was the spirit of Luo River. If they wanted to fill up the great river of Luo River, they had to kill him first. Now, Luotian had thought of a way to submit to the Pingtian clan in order to protect himself. Otherwise, when he was found by the creatures of the netherworld, if there was no one to protect him, he would definitely die. You also know that my main body is the spirit of Luo River. Luotian sighed bitterly and said, I have isolated the boundary between yin and yang. The creatures of the netherworld want to kill me and fill up the great river of Luo River. But you don't need to use this method to save your life, right? Jiangchen frowned. Then what other way is there? Luotian asked back. One had to know that in this era, not only was a prosperous era about to descend, a chaotic era had also followed. In this era, what was a divine king? Even a divine venerable might not be able to stand firm. Only by obtaining the protection of those top forces could they survive. And in the current ninth heaven divine realm, the strongest in everyone's eyes, only the Pingtian clan dared to come out and fight against the netherworld. As for the world's edge, Tongtian Church and other forces, they had all sealed their mountains. Luotian could not find them even if he wanted to. This matter is a little troublesome, Jiangchen said in a deep voice. If the people of the Pingtian clan find out that you are a man. Chapter 10-15. Luotian was worried about this as well. What if the Pingtian clan learned that he was a man, and that he had married their young master? Just the thought of it was terrifying. You mean, as long as you don't die, even if yin and yang are in chaos, the creatures of the netherworld will have to pay a price if they want to enter the world of the living? Jiangchen suddenly realized the crux of the matter. That's right. Luotian nodded. The Luo River is also known as Dead Water. It separates the two worlds of the netherworld and lies between them. It's like a dividing line. Anyone who wants to cross it will have to pay a price. Then, as long as you don't die, the Luo River won't be destroyed. The beings of the netherworld will have to pay a price if they want to enter the world of the living. Doesn't that weaken them in a disguised way? Jiangchen asked. You can understand it that way, Luotian said softly, but then he shook his head. But it can't be generalized. Once they exceed a certain limit, they won't be affected by the Luo River. A sliver of worry finally appeared on Luotian's face when he reached there. He did not want to dwell on this topic any longer. Right now, what he was most concerned about was how he could hide this from the Pingtian clan. After all, the Pingtian clan had a god emperor, and they definitely had an emperor. Luotian would definitely not be able to see through this before a being like that. When the time came, the young master of the Pingtian clan would actually marry a man. What would become of the Pingtian clan's dignity if this were to spread? When that happened, he would have to kill Luotian to regain his dignity. Speaking of which, why have you come looking for me today? Luotian asked. What do you think? Jiangchen glanced at him and said exasperatedly, Where's the thing I asked you to protect? Luotian's expression became rather unnatural when he said that. Before Jiangchen had died, he had left a bone coffin here for Luotian to clean and preserve with the Luo River. This time, Jiangchen had come here to take the bone coffin back, of course. Back then, when Jiangchen obtained the bone coffin, it was also an accident. At that time, Jiangchen had just become a god king not long ago. Coincidentally, he went to the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea and accidentally entered a small world. It was in that small world that Jiangchen saw a terrifying scene. Everything in the small world was white. Even the blood was not red. The ground was littered with white bones, and the rotten flesh was pale white. Even the brilliant sun and bright moon were pale white. It was in that small world that Jiangchen found the bone coffin. He originally thought that it was a very ordinary coffin, but when Jiangchen carefully examined it, he discovered that this bone coffin had a great background. It was made from the bones of the ancestral dragon and was covered in white vein patterns. They looked like runes, but also like a scripture. Moreover, there was a strand of black hidden under the white lines. That black color seemed to be the darkest thing in the world, eerie and cold. After Jiangchen obtained the bone coffin, he studied it for a long time and finally discovered that this bone coffin was sealed. And the thing that sealed the bone coffin was that black substance. Finally, Jiangchen found Luotian and got him to use the Luo River to purify the black substance on the bone coffin, hoping to open the bone coffin. Of course, that was all there was now. Jiangchen did not need to worry about it in this life. It was only because after Jiangchen handed the bone coffin to Luotian, he made another trip to that small world. Finally, he found a ruin. Inside the ruin, there was an inscription tablet. Some things were recorded on it, including this bone coffin. According to the inscription tablet, that small world was originally the Tao field of a major sect. But because of an unforeseen event, the entire major sect was destroyed. And back then, the strongest person of that major sect was seriously injured and fell into a deep sleep. It was suspected that he had entered this bone coffin. And most importantly, that major sect was suspected to be related to the ancestors. Now, Jiang Chun had come into contact with more and more things about the ancestors. Jiang Chun wanted to understand what kind of creatures the ancestors were. What was their attitude towards the six realms? Would they destroy the six realms just like the great sage had deduced? Or would they protect the six realms? You might not believe it, but I suspect that the person buried in this bone coffin might be related to me, Jiang Chun said in a deep voice. The inscription tablet recorded that after the major sect was destroyed, the sect leader entered the bone coffin. And the inscription tablet also recorded that the words Tian Xian and Tian Qing were mentioned. If it was before, Jiang Chun would naturally not care. But in this life, Jiang Chun knew many things. For example, he had reincarnated several times. Then, the words Tian Xian and Tian Qing mentioned on the inscription tablet, were they referring to his previous lives? If that was the case, then what was the relationship between Jiang Chun and this major sect? Jiang Chun could not help but think about it. Now, he urgently wanted to open the bone coffin and find out. However, you also know that I was raised by a female master god, Luo Shen muttered. You also know why that female master god raised me. I also spent a lot of things. So? Jiang Chen's heart thumped. He was afraid that something had happened. No one expected that you would be reincarnated, so after you died, I offered the bone coffin to that female master god. Luo Shen did not dare to look at Jiang Chen now, because he knew that since Jiang Chen had come this time, it meant that the bone coffin was very important to him. But now, the bone coffin was gone. Jiang Chen suddenly stood up, his face dark. In front of everyone, he pointed at Luo Shen's nose and said, "Do you believe that I won't cut you? You dare! Impudent! Speak to my goddess with respect." Without waiting for Luo Shen to speak, the group of people around them stood up and protected Luo Shen behind them. This scene made Jiang Chen a little confused. Was it worth it for them to do this for a man? A bunch of blind idiots, Jiang Chen thought. He glared at Luo Shen and asked, "Where's that female master god?" "She's now the wife of the 10,000 Pong Bank's master," Luo Shen said telepathically. At this moment, Jiang Chen felt dizzy and almost fainted. His heart was in a mess. The richest circle was really messy. Don't you know how the 10,000 Pong Bank does things? They only take in and not take out. It's easier said than done to take back the bone coffin from the 10,000 Pong Bank, Jiang Chen said in a low voice. He was having a headache. Moreover, if it was someone else, they might be able to use something to exchange for the bone coffin from the 10,000 Pong Bank. But if it was Jiang Chen, it would not work. In his previous life, Jiang Chen's debt with the 10,000 Pong Bank was an astronomical figure. In the end, before he could repay the debt, Jiang Chen died. But now, unless he paid off all the debts he owed in his previous life, he could forget about it. Aren't you on good terms with the 10,000 Pong Bank? If you go and take it, they won't give it to you? Luo Shen muttered. What do you know? Jiang Chen's face darkened. That was in the past. Now they can ignore me? Who cares what I am? I'm nothing. Chapter 10:16. 3,000 years ago, when Jiang Chen was the deity king, the divine world of 9 heavens was very peaceful. Even the ancient deity kings and godly venerables did not appear. At that time, Jiang Chen was the strongest person in the divine world of 9 heavens. That was why Wantong Bank opened the back door for Jiang Chen and let him pay on credit. Because the 10,000 Pong Bank also wanted to draw Jiang Chen to their side. But who would have thought that in his previous life, Jiang Chen was ambushed by 36 chief gods and died? And the debt that he owed back then had not been paid off until now. Of course, if Jiang Chen was still the strongest person in this life, then he would not have to pay off this debt. After all, everyone wanted to rope in the strongest person. But now, what was Jiang Chen? In my previous life, there must have been some kind of restriction that caused those ancient deity kings and godly venerables to not appear. That was why I was invincible for a while. Jiangchen sighed. But this life is different. The ancient deity kings are reviving, and godly venerables have appeared. There are even emperor gods and emperors. Compared to them, even if I were to recover to my previous life's peak cultivation, I would not be able to enter Wantong Bank's eyes. At this point, Jiangchen felt a headache coming on. In this life, I can't say that you are nothing, Luoshan muttered softly. In this life, you are a disciple of the sky-reaching church, the acting royal lord of Nine Heavens dynasty, and a teacher of Glory World Academy. Are these identities not enough? Will the 10,000 barrels money house do me a favor? Jiangchen said unhappily. Wantong Bank was very realistic. If Jiangchen was not strong enough and relied on other forces, they would not give him face at all. Jiangchen even suspected that if he was found by Wantong Bank now, they would skin him alive. Oh right! Someone might be able to help. Suddenly, Jiangchen's heart lit up. He thought of someone, and that was Jiutian. Back then, when he first met Jiutian, it was because of the young miss of 10,000 Pong Bank, Ji Qingxue. Under the Nine Heavens was Ji Qingxue's best friend and they were very close. In that case, if he could get Ji Qingxue to retrieve the bone coffin from the 10,000 Pong Bank through his connections with the Nine Heavens, it would not be impossible. It was just that Nine Heavens had lost his memories now. He didn't know if he could help Jiangchen. Thinking of this, Jiangchen couldn't sit still anymore. He glared at Luoshan and said in a deep voice, "Be careful. If the Pingtian clan really does find me, I'll go to the Nine Sky Empire. I hope we won't be discovered." Luoshan smiled bitterly. In the end, Jiangchen left, and used the teleportation array in Luoshan's city to arrive at the Jiutian court. The current Nine Sky dynasty had already been unsealed. Furthermore, he announced to the world that he would protect all living beings in the world against the Netherworld and the Greater Thousand Worlds. Now, because of this announcement, the Nine Skies Court's reputation in the God realm had risen greatly, and their prestige had increased greatly. Many people came because of the reputation. Some joined the dynasty, and some experts became guests of the dynasty. Of course, there were also people who came to seek refuge. Looking around, there were many living beings in the current Jiutian court. Just the mountain gate alone had dozens of people. And in the square, there were hundreds of disciples cultivating. Moreover, Jiangchen even saw a few lords and an ancient godly king. And to the current Jiangchen, these were naturally not strange. After all, in this life, Jiangchen could be considered to have seen the world. He had even met a divine venerable. However, when he entered the mountain gate, passed through the square, and arrived in front of the main hall of the Jiutian court, his expression changed. In front of the main hall was the square. At this moment, in front of the main hall, there was a skinny old man sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Divine light flickered on his body, and there were great Tao runes condensed around him. Under his seat, there were strands of laws spiraling like true dragons. He seemed to be preaching to the disciples in the square. And the moment Jiangchen saw this skinny old man, his soul instinctively trembled. It was as if he had encountered a primordial beast, or as if he had seen an emperor. A sense of submission swept through his heart, and even his soul. "Senior!" Jiangchen's body trembled. The feeling of submission in his heart grew stronger and stronger. He almost couldn't help but kneel down. Fortunately, the old man woke up at this moment. The aura on his body disappeared, and he turned into a very ordinary old man. When he saw Jiangchen, he hurriedly stood up and cupped his hands at Jiangchen. He revealed a set of yellow teeth and smiled. "Thank you for unsealing me, Jiangchen." Unsealing? Jiangchen was stunned for a moment, then reacted and asked, "Senior, you've come out?" Back then, Jiangchen had unsealed the Jiutian court and released Jioshin. After that, he was entrusted by Jioshin to enter the world behind the bronze door. With the power of the array, he slowly unsealed the blood moon. He didn't expect that after so long, the living beings sealed in the blood moon would come out. Moreover, he recovered very quickly, and his cultivation seemed to have reached the emperor god level. Even an emperor. I've been sealed in the blood moon for who knows how many eras. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to come out in this life. The old man was filled with gratitude and said, My name is Gio. If you don't mind, you can call me Old Gio as an equal. You can even call me Old Gio. No matter who I was in the past, it's all in the past. In this life, I'm Jiangchen. Jiangchen smiled. I'll call you Senior Gio. I don't dare to be called Senior. Just call me Old Gio. Old Gio said seriously. Although the past lives are in the past, I still remember. It's my fortune to be able to talk to you on the same level. After saying that, Old Gio's expression turned serious. After staring at Jiangchen for a while, he asked seriously, You have chaotic qi? Jiangchen's expression changed. He didn't expect Old Gio to see through the abnormality in his body. Moreover, looking at Old Gio's expression, he seemed to be very wary. There was a trace of fear in the depths of his eyes. Senior, is there a problem with this chaotic qi? Jiangchen asked hurriedly. One had to know that the 3 strands of chaotic qi had merged with Jiangchen's soul. It could be said that they were attached to Jiangchen's soul. If there was a problem with the 3 strands of chaotic qi, Jiangchen's soul couldn't be protected. By then, his soul would be scattered. This is hard to say. Old Gio frowned with a trace of doubt. Logically speaking, chaotic qi can't be controlled by anyone. Since ancient times, those who were tainted by chaotic qi didn't have a good ending. Some even disappeared for no reason. When Jiangchen heard that, he felt a chill in his heart. He asked, Disappeared for no reason? Could they have been swallowed by chaotic qi? Maybe they were swallowed, but there are rumors that those who wanted to control chaotic qi weren't swallowed. Instead, they went to another world. Old Gio said and shook his head. It's very strange, but there's no proof. It's hard to say. Chapter 10:17. There were many legends about the primal chaos, but most of them were strange. Even an emperor god would not dare to step into the primal chaos. At this moment, Old Gio stopped talking about this topic. He looked at Jiangchen seriously and said, The Jiutian Imperial Court has appeared again. Don't go out. Stay here and cultivate. It's very chaotic outside. Many forces have quietly appeared. You haven't even heard of some of them. Which forces? Jiangchen asked. Jiangchen knew that the Jiutian divine world was very deep, but no one knew how deep it was. Perhaps, only those old monsters who had lived for several eras would know a thing or two. Let's not talk about the Tianya clan and the Pingtian clan for now. Now, the world knows about the existence of these 2 forces. Old Gio said as he looked into the distance. After taking a deep breath, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. The 3 mountains and 6 seas are about to appear. In the end, Old Gio sighed and explained to Jiangchen what the 3 mountains and 6 seas were. A long time ago, the 3 mountains were known as the 3 clear upper sects. However, due to a great change, the 3 clear upper sects collapsed and eventually split into 3 sections. Each of them established their own sect, using the 3 clear upper sects' divine mountain as their base. Thus, they changed their name to 3 mountains. The 3 mountains had been very powerful since ancient times. There were even later human emperors who imitated one of the 3 mountains and named their dojo the 3rd mountain. At this point, Jiangchen's expression turned serious. Could the human emperor that Old Gio was talking about be the one from the godless continent? One had to know that there was a forbidden area in the godless continent called the 3rd mountain. And the one who lived in the 3rd mountain was the one who called himself the human emperor. However, before Jiangchen could ask, Old Gio continued. The 3 mountains were now in the forbidden area of the East Sea. Each of them occupied an island and became a forbidden area. They never allowed outsiders to enter. Even the disciples could only live on the island and could not enter the mountain, in the true sense. The three mountains had always been mysterious, but there were some people who understood some things. The divine world of the ninth heaven, and even the chaos of the six worlds, had the shadows of the three mountains behind it. Old Ninth was not the only one who was worried. Even the leaders of the other top forces were worried. Did the three mountains want to destroy the six realms? One had to know that in the past, there had been an upheaval that had led to the destruction of three forbidden lands. Hundreds of millions of living beings had died, and the entire God realm had been dyed in blood. On the other hand, the upheaval all those years ago had even caused the mortal dimension to collapse and almost be obliterated. Later on, if not for the human emperor taking action, using a great divine ability to protect the human realm, the other side might not even need to take action, the human realm would have long been destroyed. Hearing this, Jiang Chen's heart tightened. If Ninth Brother's words were true, then the three mountains were too terrifying. The chaos it caused almost destroyed a great world. Right now, all three mountains have reappeared. However, they have yet to come out from the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea. Old Nine said, I can sense the auras of those old monsters in the three mountains. They are as strong as ever, as if they will not weaken with time. Their vitality and lifespan are still as strong as ever. 3 mountains and 6 seas. What are the 6 seas? Jiang Chen asked. One of the 6 seas is the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea, Old Nine said. When the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea was mentioned, the confusion on his face became even more intense. That was because the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea had been a forbidden area since ancient times. However, no one knew who the owner of the forbidden area was. In this world, many people had entered the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea. Some came back alive, while others died inside. Those who came out alive had never seen the owner of the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea. Some of their memories seemed to have been cut off and disappeared after coming out of the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea. The most puzzling thing was that the Eastern Sea was a forbidden area, so why were the 3 mountains built in the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea? Wasn't this the forbidden area of the forbidden areas? As the owner of the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea, could he really tolerate the 3 mountains building forces in his territory? Maybe the owner of the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea died a long time ago, or he didn't want to care about these things at all. Old Nine said in a low voice. Is there some treasure in the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea? Jiang Chen said softly. Otherwise, why would the 3 mountains be built in the Eastern Sea? This is just a guess. Old Nine said. There are many guesses about the Eastern Sea, but there is only one that is the most convincing. What is it? Jiang Chen asked. Old Nine took a few deep breaths. His expression was very serious. After a few breaths, he slowly said, The forbidden area of the Eastern Sea might be the place where the southern wall manifests. Otherwise, why would the 3 mountains enter the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea? Also, why had the owner of the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea never been seen? Perhaps, there was only one possibility. The forbidden area of the Eastern Sea did not have an owner. This place was just a natural barrier to protect the southern wall. Moreover, the 3 mountains were the top forces. In their eyes, the realm of the gods, or even the entire 6 realms, was not worth their time. They were high and mighty and had long transcended. How could ordinary things enter their eyes? After all these guesses, many people came to the conclusion that the 3 mountains entered the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea for the southern wall. Of course, these were all guesses. No one knew the truth. Perhaps the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea had an owner. Perhaps he was dead, or perhaps he was still alive. As for the 3 mountains entering the forbidden area of the Eastern Sea, they might have other motives. Other than the Eastern Sea, what other seas are there? Jiang Chen asked. Reincarnation, netherworld, limitless, rendition, and rebirth, Old Nine said. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. This made Jiang Chen very surprised and even a little shocked. During the conversation, Jiang Chen found out that Old Nine was an emperor, which was the highest realm among the known realms. Such a living being stood at the peak of cultivation and looked down on the world, inexhaustible and indestructible. Logically speaking, such a living being would only be afraid. How could there be fear? However, at this moment, Jiangchun could clearly see the fear in old Nyan's eyes. Wait! These seas… why are their names so strange? All of a sudden, Jiangchun realized something. Reincarnation, netherworld, limitless, poison, and rebirth. These names… why do they sound like things that only exist in the underworld? Could it be that these 5 seas originated from the underworld? You should have guessed it, right? Old Nyan said seriously. There was once an underworld, which was called the ancient underworld by later generations. However, the ancient underworld collapsed a long time ago and was destroyed. In later generations, the ancient underworld reappeared, but it turned into 5 different forces, and these 5 forces are the 5 seas. Old Nyan's expression was very serious. Not only was there fear in his eyes, but even the fear on his face could not be concealed. These 5 seas… their purpose is very clear. They want to destroy everything and revive the ancient underworld, Old Nyan said. Chapter 10:18. The purpose of the 3 mountains was not clear. Most people were just guessing. However, the purpose of the 6 seas was well known. The ancient hell was established during the primordial era and flourished during the later primordial era. At that time, the ancient hell was full of experts, and there was no lack of emperors. There were even suspected to be existences that surpassed emperors. At that time, the ancient hell was said to have truly controlled the cycle of reincarnation. Whoever it wanted to die would die, and whoever it wanted to live would live. At that time, all living beings in the world could be reincarnated, but they had to obtain the consent of the ancient hell. It was precisely because of this that some people rebelled. In the end, they joined forces with many top experts to destroy the ancient hell and break the cycle of reincarnation. Reincarnation was no longer under the control of the ancient hell. However, what the world did not expect was that after the ancient hell was destroyed, the cycle of reincarnation also changed. In the later generations, not everyone could be reincarnated. Some people died and never appeared again. Sometimes, some people would think that if the ancient hell was not destroyed, would the cycle of reincarnation still be controlled? Would every living being be reincarnated? Some people also regretted that if the ancient hell was still around, when their lifespan was exhausted, as long as they gave the ancient hell enough treasures and lowered their status, they might be able to reincarnate and live another life. However, everything was in the past. The ancient hell was destroyed in the end, and there were still people who refused to accept it. However, just when everyone thought that the ancient hell would never appear again, the 5 seas appeared in the later generations. In the primordial era, the 5 seas appeared out of thin air and controlled a corner of the cycle of reincarnation. They could allow people to reincarnate and live another life, or even several lives. However, the actions of the 5 seas were unacceptable to the people of the world. They carried the will of the ancient hell and wanted to control all living beings in the world. They wanted to control their cycle of life and death. This naturally caused dissatisfaction among the people. At the end of the primordial era, the 5 seas finally caused public outrage. In the end, they were defeated and went into hiding. At this point, the 5 seas and the ancient hell disappeared from the eyes of the people of the world. They did not appear for several generations. However, many people knew that such a force could not be destroyed. They must have gone into hibernation, looking for an opportunity to appear again. They might even control the cycle of life and death and reappear in the ancient hell. Do you know what it means to reappear in the ancient hell? Old Nyan asked. I don't. Jiangchun shook his head. Perhaps Jiangchun had come into contact with these things in his previous lives, but he knew nothing about them in this life. As for the matter of the 3 mountains and 6 seas, he only knew a little about it after hearing Old Nyan's words. They want to turn this world into a true underworld, Old Gio said in a deep voice. All living beings are like wandering ghosts in the underworld. They are at the mercy of the underworld. This is their goal. So, nobody would agree to the reappearance of the ancient hell? Jiangchen asked. When Old Ninth heard this, he shook his head firmly and vetoed it. This was because there were many people in the world who did not want to die just like that. But now, there was a problem with reincarnation. Not everyone could reincarnate. Therefore, if those people knew that the 5 great seas were about to appear, they would definitely stand on the side of the 5 great seas. If he could help the 5 great seas rebuild the ancient underworld, then their reincarnation and rebirth would be secured. Even if the ancient hell could not be rebuilt, the 5 great seas still controlled a corner of reincarnation. At least, they could let those people reincarnate for 1 or 2 lives. The 5 great seas have appeared, so have the 3 mountains. The chaos of yin and yang has descended, the southern wall is about to collapse, and the greater 1,000 worlds are about to enter the 9 heavens' divine realm. The water is getting muddier and muddier. Even if it's a god emperor, or even an emperor, they might not be able to safely survive this great chaos. Old Ninth sighed. When he appeared this time, Old Ninth thought that with his emperor cultivation, he would be able to suppress everything and restore the former glory of the 9 heavens' imperial court. But he didn't expect that he would encounter such a chaotic world that was rarely seen since ancient times. Now, the only thing Old Ninth could do was to protect the 9 heavens' imperial court. Even if he had to use his life, he had to ensure that the 9 heavens' imperial court's inheritance would not be destroyed. Because of this, after he appeared, the 9 heavens' imperial court announced to the world. This was not only to increase their own strength, but also to accept disciples. The 9 heavens' imperial court wanted to spread the inheritance. If the 9 heavens' imperial court was really destroyed one day, at least the seeds would still be there. Perhaps one day, the 9 heavens' imperial court would reappear. At this moment, Jiangchen fell silent. During this period of time, he had wandered outside and gained a lot. For example, tidal power and cultivation resources, he had obtained them all. With these things, Jianglu and the rest did not have to worry about the future. As long as they did not die, it was at least enough for them to cultivate to God King. With this, Jiangchen also felt that there was no need for him to continue wandering outside. Perhaps it was time to come back and cultivate in peace. But before that, Jiangchen still had something to do. Can you make a trip to the 10,000 Pong Bank and help me get something back? Jiangchen looked at Old Ninth and said, That is a bone coffin that I obtained in my previous life. It is now in the hands of the 10,000 Pong Bank. Is that thing important? Old Ninth frowned. If it is very precious, the 10,000 Pong Bank will not return it for free. They will definitely need to exchange something of equivalent value. Speaking up to here, Old Ninth's expression became strange and said, Didn't you rob the Dark God Palace? With so many treasures on you, you should be able to exchange for that bone coffin, right? Hearing this, Jiangchen blushed and said, This? I'm afraid it's not enough. One had to know that Jiangchen had borrowed too much money from the 10,000 Pong Bank. It was an astronomical figure. Now, even if Jiangchen gave all the things he had stolen from the Dark God Palace to the 10,000 Pong Bank, he might not be able to repay it. Therefore, it was not convenient for him to personally deal with this matter. He could only entrust it to others. Now that the chaotic world is about to arrive, as the Emperor, if I express my goodwill to the 10,000 Pong Bank, the 10,000 Pong Bank will be very happy. When the time comes, it should be easy to ask them for a bone coffin. Old Ninth thought for a moment and said, Wait for me here. I will be back soon. I'll have to trouble you, Jiangchen said softly. Then, Old Ninth directly tore through the void and left. Jiangchen stood at the entrance of the main hall, waiting for Old Ninth to return. Master! Half a day later, a crisp and pleasant voice came from not far away. Only to see Jiutian was like a little fairy, skipping over to Jiangchen's side. Her memory had not recovered yet. Now, she was as pure as a piece of white paper. Moreover, in her memory, she only remembered Jiangchen alone. Sometimes, Jiangchen was also very puzzled. Just how much resentment did Jiutian have towards him back then? After losing her memory, she actually still remembered him. Little Xia, long time no see. Have you been obedient during this period of time? Jiang Chen smiled as he rubbed Jiao Tian's head. He could not help feeling a trace of guilt in his heart. After all, it was Jiao Tian who had blocked for him once back then. Although it was an accident, Jiang Chen still felt very apologetic in his heart. Little Xia has been very obedient. Jiao Tian blinked her big watery eyes and said, That strange grandpa said that he could help little Xia recover her memory. Chapter 10:19. The strange grandpa that Jiao Tian under the heavens was talking about was most likely Old Nine. With Old Nine's cultivation level, it was naturally very easy for him to recover Jiao Tian under the heavens' memories. However, some preparations were needed. Otherwise, Jiao Tian under the heavens would have already recovered her memories. And? Suddenly, Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed as he stared at Jiao Tian under the heavens. He actually saw a terrifying killing intent from her body. This murderous aura was so dense that it almost materialized. It was like a long saber standing behind her. Your Tao spirit is about to awaken! Jiang Chen was shocked. He knew how terrifying Jiao Tian under the heavens' Tao spirit was. Previously, Jiang Chen knew that Jiao Tian under the heavens' Tao spirit was a long knife, a greedy ghost. This Tao spirit was not greedy for money, not lustful, only lustful for the lives of all living beings in the world. Once this Tao spirit was born, Jiang Chen did not need to think too much. Jiao Tian under the heavens would definitely be devoured by the greedy ghost's killing intent and become a walking corpse without consciousness, only knowing how to kill. However, there was dust on the greedy ghost previously, which sealed the greedy ghost. But now, it seemed that the dust was about to disappear. I have to think of a way, Jiang Chen thought and asked. Little Xia, how do you feel now? Is there any part of your body that is uncomfortable? Jiao Tian under the heavens tilted her head and thought for a while. She frowned slightly and said, It seems a little uncomfortable, like this place is about to split open, but it doesn't hurt. Jiao Tian under the heavens held Jiang Chen's hand and pressed it on her chest. Air! Jiang Chen did not react for a moment. When he touched that soft thing, his face turned red and he hurriedly retracted his hand. This girl really doesn't know anything, Jiang Chen muttered. His eyes shone brightly and the runes were as bright as the stars. He was observing Jiao Tian under the heavens' soul. After a few breaths, Jiang Chen's face became very ugly. Looking carefully, Jiao Tian under the heavens' soul was already blood red. Even the soul was dyed blood red. In the Sumru world of the soul, there was killing intent everywhere and a blood-red ocean was formed. Within the sea of blood, a long saber floated up and down. The terrifying killing intent was coming from this saber. And this saber was none other than the life grubber. The world's strongest killing weapon, life-greedy demon. Jiang Chen frowned. He couldn't think of a way to seal this life-greedy demon. Maybe Ninth Brother has a way, Jiang Chen muttered. At this moment, the void in front of the hall split open, and Old Ninth returned with a dark expression. The 10,000 Barrels Bank doesn't agree. They want you to go there personally, Old Ninth said in a low voice. Even an emperor like you can't do it? Jiang Chen was stunned. As an emperor-level expert, no matter who it was in this world, they would have to give him face, right? However, he did not expect Wantong Bank to be so confident that they would not even give face to the emperor. The 10,000 Barrels Bank has a strong foundation. I guess there will be a strong expert in this world. Otherwise, how could they not give face to me, the emperor? Old Ninth's face darkened. This trip to the 10,000 Barrels Bank was embarrassing. At this moment, Jiang Chen was also helpless. He really didn't want to go to the 10,000 Barrels Bank. After all, he still owed the 10,000 Barrels Bank a lot of money. If he went there and didn't come out, he would probably be dead. You're going with me? Jiang Chen said softly. If I go alone, I'm afraid it's very dangerous. All right. I was thinking of going there again. I want to see how much confidence and strength the 10,000 Pong Bank has to not give me face. Old Nine said. I want to go too. Jiutian jumped up and down and said, blinking his big watery eyes. If you don't let me go, I'll cry. Let's go then. With me around, no one will dare to hurt you, Old Ninth said. In the end, Old Ninth tore open the void again and brought Jiangchen and Jiutian to the mountain gate of the 10,000 Barrels Bank. On the way, Jiangchen carried Jiutian on his back and looked serious. He looked at Old Ninth and said after a few breaths, Do you know her Tao Soul? The moment these words came out, Old Ninth was dumbfounded. He asked, What's wrong? You don't know? Jiangchen was shocked. However, after thinking about it, Old Ninth had just been born. How could he have time to take care of Jiutian? She has a Tao Soul, Jiangchen said. She's a greedy ghost. What? Greedy ghost? Old Ninth exclaimed when he heard this. That was because he knew what a greedy ghost was. Once this Tao Soul was awakened, Jiutian would definitely be devoured. The greedy ghost is about to wake up. I just checked her spiritual world. The murderous intent inside has turned into an ocean. The dust on the greedy ghost is about to disappear, Jiangchen said. Only Tianzhong and Tianxia are left of the direct descendants of the Nine Skies court. Old Nine said in a low voice. We can't lose anyone. Let's deal with your problem first. I'll think of something else, Old Ninth said. After a few breaths, the three of them walked out of the void and entered the mountain gate of the 10,000 Barrels Bank. The 10,000 Barrels Bank was located in a small world. This was their headquarters. Under normal circumstances, outsiders would have to report in advance if they wanted to enter the small world of the 10,000 Barrels Bank. However, to Old Ninth, what report was there to report? He was an Imperial Realm elite. He was giving the 10,000 Barrels Bank face by coming to the small world. After the three of them entered the small world, they came to a building. This was where the core members of the 10,000 Barrels Bank lived and cultivated. What? What are these? Old Ninth was stunned. He saw pieces of white paper floating in the air in front of him. Upon closer inspection, each piece of white paper had a few lines of words written on it. The words, Tianqin, were written at the bottom of the paper. These are all F*King promissory notes. After a few breaths, Old Ninth understood. The tens of thousands of notes, floating in the air were all promissory notes, written by Jiangchen in his previous life. Tianqin, you're finally here! At that moment, the villa master of the 10,000 Barrels Bank walked out of the main hall. When he saw Old Ninth, a tinge of fear flashed in his eyes. He saluted Old Ninth. When he saw Jiangchen, his eyes were about to spit fire. Big Villa Master, long time no see. I've missed you, Jiangchen said with a laugh. He pointed at the promissory notes, floating in the air, and said, Big Villa Master, what is the meaning of this? Do you think I'll go back on my word? Don't you know if you'll go back on your word? Big Villa Master said angrily. The anger in his eyes almost turned into murderous intent. When he had given Jiangchen credit, he, the Big Villa Master, had been the guarantor. After that, Jiangchen had died suddenly before he could return the money. This made him, the guarantor, very upset. He was almost kicked out of his position as the Big Villa Master by the elders of the 10,000 Barrels Bank. All these years, Big Villa Master had been missing Jiangchen. He regretted giving him credit in the first place. Chapter 1020. Ever since he knew that Jiangchen had been reborn, First Zhuangzhu had been looking forward to Jiangchen's return. He did not want Jiangchen's life, he only wanted Jiangchen to pay off these IOUs. Back then, when the experts did not appear, you, the Divine King, ruled the 9 heavens. You were in the limelight for once, First Zhuangzhu said in a deep voice. Now, the Divine King does not have the final say in this world. It's time for you to pay back the debt you owed back then, right? I'll pay it back slowly. I won't go back on my word, Jiangchen said with a smile. He then pointed at the IOUs floating in the air and said, "Put them away. They're so ugly." "You know they're ugly?" First Zhuangzhu was furious. Each of these IOUs was a huge sum of money. He suspected that the Jiangqin in this life did not have the ability to pay them back. But he still did not give up, so he asked Jiangqin to come to the 10,000-barrel bank to ask for an explanation. "I heard that you looted the Dark God Palace's treasury some time ago. You should have money on you now, right?" First Zhuangzhu raised his eyebrows and said, "Isn't it time to pay it back?" "I've already used it up." Jiangqin shrugged and said, "Reincarnation, I need a lot of cultivation resources. You know this too. What nonsense are you talking about?" First Zhuangzhu's face suddenly darkened. He stared at Jiangqin and said, "There are so many treasures in the Dark God Palace's treasury. You've used them all up so quickly? Don't bullshit me. If you don't pay back the money today, believe it or not, I won't let you walk out of this door." Jiangqin laughed. Anyway, he had made up his mind to go back on his word. Moreover, old Gio was also here. Jiangqin did not believe that the 10,000-barrel bank could do anything to old Gio. "Little guy, the 10,000-barrel bank's main business is business. If we hurt each other, we'll lose business," old Gio said softly. "Why? Today, I brought him here. If you don't let him leave safely, are you not giving me face?" "One." As soon as he finished speaking, a rumbling sound came from old Ninth's body. A terrifying emperor's aura erupted, and the space around him was crushed. However, what surprised everyone was that Manor Lord Great Manor did not show any fear when he faced the 9th Emperor. He looked at the 9th Emperor and cupped his hands. Then, he slowly said, "9th Emperor, you should know the reason why my 10,000-barrel bank has been able to stand until now. In this world, no one dares to claim to be invincible, and no one is invincible. If the 9th Emperor thinks that he is invincible, then, you can try it today." Who was Old Ninth? He was a giant from the prehistoric era, the old ancestor of the 9 Heavens dynasty. Since when had anyone dared to speak to him like this? Even monarchs of the same realm wouldn't dare to speak to him with such an attitude. In Old Ninth's ears, Manor Master's words were undoubtedly a threat. "You're courting death." At this moment, Old Ninth didn't hesitate at all. With a shout, a strand of hair fell down. "Chi!" The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. The strand of hair was like a ray of light. It was like an indestructible blade that slashed towards Manor Lord Great Manor. "You!" Manor Lord Great Manor's expression changed drastically. Although he was confident, he was definitely no match for Old Ninth. In fact, Old Ninth's strand of hair was enough to kill him. "9th Emperor, you're already so old. Why are you still so hot-tempered? Why are you being so calculative with a junior?" All of a sudden, an indifferent voice was heard. Then, a strand of Old Ninth's hair was burned and turned into ashes. At the same time, an old man in a white robe appeared in front of Manor Lord Great Manor. "Emperor!" Jiangqin was shocked. The moment the old man appeared, he sensed that his aura was no weaker than Old Ninth's. Moreover, there was a picture of 9 white clouds on his robe. In the entire 9 Heavens divine world, there was only one clan that dared to have a picture of 9 white clouds on their robes. That was the Pingtian clan. No wonder Wantong Bank is so confident. So it's because they've joined the Pingtian clan in this life. Old Ninth was relieved. Then, he curled his lips and said, "Ping Si, although you're an emperor now, even if your father comes, he might not dare to interfere with my matters." When he said that, not only was Jiangqin moved, but even Manor Lord Great Manor's expression changed. Manor Lord Great Manor originally thought that with Ping Si of the Pingtian clan supporting him, he would be able to fight Old Ninth, and even suppress him. After all, every single member of the Pingtian clan was extremely powerful, let alone an emperor. However, he never expected Old Ninth to be so calm in front of Ping Si. He did not even give Ping Si any face when he spoke. Moreover, after Ping Si asked, he smiled faintly and nodded. He said, "9th Emperor's strength shakes the world. Of course I'm no match for you. However, Ping Si's expression suddenly froze when he said that. He said, But so what if you're strong? You alone can contend against my entire Pingtian clan. Humph! Old Ninth snorted coldly. He said nothing. Clearly, he felt rather helpless. After all, the Pingtian clan was just too powerful. According to what Old Ninth knew, there was more than one emperor in the Pingtian clan. He was the only emperor in the Nine Skies Empire right now. No matter what, I brought him here today. I have to take responsibility. After a moment of silence, Old Ninth said very sternly, He has to go back the same way he came. He can't lose a single hair. Ninth Emperor, look at what you're saying. Are we going to make things difficult for him? Ping Si smiled. Afterwards, Ping Si looked at Jiang Chun and asked with a smile, It's only right to repay a debt. Don't tell me you don't know this rule? Of course I know. I never said I wouldn't return it, Jiang Chun murmured. He thought that the treasures he had stolen from the Dark God Hall were probably going to be lost here today. Even if he gave all the treasures to Wantong Bank, it probably wouldn't be enough. However, the two emperors were going against each other today. If this matter wasn't handled well, it would only get bigger and bigger. Moreover, Jiang Chun was in the wrong in this matter. Cough, cough. That I owed too much in my previous life. I have to slowly repay it in this life. Jiang Chun coughed a few times to hide his awkwardness. Hearing this, Big Landlord frowned. He knew that Jiang Chun was telling the truth. However, Jiang Chun had owed this debt for too long. If he couldn't collect it now, his position as Big Landlord might not be guaranteed. What made Big Landlord angry the most was that when Jiang Chun returned to Jiuxia Divine World, he actually went to the Void God World to cause trouble and took away a few blessed lands that originally belonged to Wantong Bank. You already owed money and you even stole my blessed lands. Your actions are too vile, Big Landlord said in a deep voice. I've already said it clearly. He definitely won't be able to repay it today, but he should, Old Ninth said. Also, today, that bone coffin must be returned to him. Once those words were spoken, Manor Master's expression turned incredibly ugly. What kind of joke is this? The debt hasn't been paid and you still want to take back the bone coffin? Moreover, the bone coffin was sold to Wantong Bank by Luotian. Wantong Bank did indeed spend money to buy it. Chapter 1021. They could give the bone coffin to Jiang Chun, but they had to redeem it. But the problem was that they had not repaid their previous debts, and now they wanted to redeem something. This was not appropriate, right? Wantong Bank is the number one financial group in the Ninth Heaven Divine World. Do you still lack money? Old Jiu said. He thought that Wantong Bank was too stingy. Hearing this, Big Landlord's chest heaved up and down, and he almost vomited blood. That little money? You still have the face to say that. Ninth Emperor, I'm afraid you don't know how much he owes, right? Big Landlord said in a deep voice. In my previous life, the things he needed for cultivation were all provided by Wantong Bank. When Tenshin Shinzo was established, the materials he needed were also provided by Wantong Bank. After that, the disciples of Tenshin Shinzo and his brothers needed cultivation resources. They were all provided by Wantong Bank. And he only wrote a few IOUs to us. He didn't even see a single cent. Speaking of this, Big Landlord was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Big Landlord, calm down, don't be angry, Jiang Chun said lightly. If you get angry and hurt your body, who will collect the debt? You. Big Landlord's face turned pale, and he almost fainted. Is this something a human would say? He will pay a portion of the money first. You can return the bone coffin to him, and I can also promise Wantong Bank one thing. Old Jiu thought carefully. It was too difficult for Jiang Chun to pay all the money in one go. Jiutian dynasty was not that rich. Although he could help Jiang Chun pay off the debt, Jiutian dynasty would also go bankrupt. In that case, Old Jiu could only use his own money. However, old Geo did not have much money. Other than his cultivation, he did not have anything else. However, old Geo's cultivation was his most precious thing. At this moment, Big Landlord's eyes lit up when he heard old Geo's words. He said, "Any request?" "Don't go overboard," old Geo said in a deep voice. Manor Master frowned and fell into deep thought for a while. As a businessman, his mind was working quickly. He was thinking about what kind of request he should make to maximize his benefits. A few breaths later, the first Manor Master's eyes lit up. He said, "When chaos descends, can the Nine Heavens dynasty protect my 10,000-barrel bank?" As soon as these words came out, Old Ninth's face turned ugly. One had to know that this chaotic era was rarely seen throughout history. Compared to the other chaotic eras in history, this one was especially terrifying. In fact, in this chaotic world, even the Emperor might not be able to survive. Although Old Ninth was strong, he still had to protect the Nine Skies Imperial Court. How could he have the time to protect the 10,000-barrel bank? What's more, wasn't the 10,000 Pong Bank related to the Heavenly Clan? With the protection of the Pinkian clan, what was the point of his protection? "I can help 10,000 Pong Bank once," Old Nine said. "If a king attacks 10,000 Pong Bank, I will help you once." "Once?" The first Manor Master frowned. He felt that this deal was not worth it. He pondered for a long time before his eyes lit up. He said, 10,000-barrel bank can cancel Jiang Chen's debt, but you have to help us 10 times. Okay. Jiang Chen agreed without waiting for Old Ninth to speak. He even patted Old Ninth's shoulder and said, "You can do it." Old Ninth blinked his eyes. He was very confused. "Big brother, the person who will help is not you, it's me. You make it sound so easy." However, it was still Jiang Chen who unsealed Old Ninth. This was a life-saving grace, so Old Ninth agreed after some thought. He would treat it as returning Jiang Chen's favor. "I will help 10 times," Old Ninth said seriously. "Moreover, I will only attack emperors. If any godly monarchs or divine venerables come looking for trouble, don't call me." "Of course." The first Manor Master hurriedly nodded. He then took out a silk scroll and wrote a line of words. He placed it in front of Old Ninth and said, "Ninth Emperor, it's better if you sign it. It's best to have proof. Did you write those IOUs like this?" Old Ninth glanced at Jiang Chen with a strange expression. He realized that this guy was grinning happily. In the end, Old Ninth signed the silk scroll and reached an agreement with 10,000-barrel bank. Pingxi listened quietly from the side. He did not say anything. However, his heart was not calm. It was as if a storm was raging in his heart. After the 9th Emperor came out, did his cultivation improve by a lot? Pingxi thought to himself. This was because he saw confidence in Old Ninth's eyes. Old Ninth had agreed to help 10,000-barrel bank. Moreover, these 10 opponents had to be emperors. This meant that Old Ninth was very confident. He had the strength to fight any emperor. This was absolutely terrifying. One had to know that even Pingxi's father, the number 3 person in the Pingtian clan, was not so confident. Could his cultivation be comparable to my grandfather's? Pingxi thought to himself. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching cry sounded from the side. Everyone looked back and saw a sea of blood rising from Jiao Tian's body. In the sea of blood, a long saber stood tall and emitted today's killing intent. At the same time, Jiao Tian's eyes lost their luster and became blood red. Even his hair was dyed red. "Oh no! The dust on the greedy ghost has disappeared!" Jiang Chen exclaimed. He could clearly feel that Jiao Tian was being devoured by the greedy ghost. Especially her soul and will, they were about to disappear in the terrifying killing intent. Greedy ghost! This is... Pingxi and the first Manor Master were shocked. They were holding Jiao Tian up. Their eyes were filled with shock. The legendary strongest Tao soul of slaughter, the greedy ghost, Pingxi said solemnly. The dust has disappeared. She can't be saved. Does the Pingtian clan have a way? Old Ninth panicked. His face was red and even his eyes were bloodshot. One had to know that only Jiao Tian and Jiao Tianzhong were left of the direct descendants of the Jiao Tian dynasty. These two were the future and hope of the Jiao Tian dynasty. Of course, whether it was the 9th emperor or Jiaoshin, they could have a few more children. However, the higher their cultivation, the more powerful their Dao arts were, and the lower their chances of having children. As long as they surpassed the Overgod realm, it was almost impossible for them to have children. It was because of this that the top factions and clans valued their descendants so much. Of course our clan has a way, but why should we help you? Pingxi said with a frown. When times of prosperity and chaos arrive, who knows whether the Pingtian clan and the Jiaotian dynasty will be friends or foes? Save her. I'll agree to any conditions. Old Ninth grabbed Pingxi's shoulder and said solemnly, She's one of the 2 remaining descendants of the Jiaotian dynasty. We can't lose her. Chapter 1022. The 9th brother panicked. Even though he was an emperor, there was nothing he could do against the life-greedy ghost. He grabbed Pingxi's shoulder. A sliver of weakness appeared in his eyes as an emperor, in the end. Who said that emperors were invincible? They just did not have emotions. Even if I agreed to save her, I might not be able to save her. Pingxi sighed. The life-greedy ghost is the greatest way of slaughter in the world. Since ancient times, no one with this way of slaughter has been able to survive. I know, the 9th brother growled. But the Pingtian clan definitely has a way. You have an ancient heritage and a deep heritage. You definitely have a way. Of course, we have a way, but I can't guarantee that we'll be able to save her. Pingxi sighed. We've never encountered something like this before. We can only do our best. Thank you. The 9th brother lowered his head. To an emperor, lowering his head to another living being was the greatest form of courtesy. However, Pingxi shook his head and said, You have to promise me something, or there's no need for me to save her. What is it? Tell me. The 9th brother asked in a hurry. No matter what happens in the future, the 9 Heavens Empire cannot become enemies with the Pingtian clan, said Pingxi. If you agree to this condition, then swear a blood oath. I'll take her back to the Pingtian clan right now and help her purge the life-greedy ghost's killing intent. All right. As long as you can save her. The 9th brother nodded. Without even considering it, he immediately swore a blood oath. In the end, Pingxi left with Jiao Tian, while the 9th brother and Jiangqin became worried. Ever since I became an emperor, this is the first time I've lowered my head. The 9th brother sighed. His mouth was filled with bitterness as he felt extremely helpless inside. The 9th brother had once thought that he would never lower his head. Even when the 9 Heavens Empire had almost been destroyed and he had been sealed in the Blood Moon, he had never lowered his head. But even he himself didn't expect that he, who had never lowered his head his entire life, would actually lower his head for a descendant of his. Perhaps this was kinship. Jiangqin patted the 9th brother's shoulder and comforted him. The Pingtian clan has a deep heritage. They should be able to heal Jiao Tian. I hope so, the 9th brother sighed. He was not confident either. After all, Pingxi himself had said that he could only do his best. As for whether or not he could save the 9 heavens, that was hard to say. This is the bone coffin you wanted. At this moment, the Grand Manor Master handed the coffin to Jiangqin with an unpleasant expression and said, Consider the previous matter as settled. From now on, don't even think about taking credit at my 10,000 barrels bank. Not even 1 cent. If I had known that you guys were so stingy and hard to get, I wouldn't have put it on credit. Jiangqin curled his lips. Once those words were spoken, Great Manor Master almost exploded in anger. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such a shameless person. In the end, Jiangqin and Old Ninth left and returned to the 9 Skies Imperial Court. As soon as he returned, Jiangqin went straight to the back of the mountain and arrived at a secluded area. After setting up a spell formation, he began to study the bone coffin. This was something he found in a ruin in the forbidden area of the East Sea. It seemed to be related to his previous lives. At the same time, Jiang Chun also realized one thing. The forbidden area of the East Sea was definitely not ordinary. The 3 mountains were built in the forbidden area of the East Sea, and the bone coffin came from the forbidden area of the East Sea. Moreover, the southern wall was suspected to be in the forbidden area of the East Sea. Everything was connected together. Jiang Chun could not help but wonder what kind of place the forbidden area of the East Sea was. Could that place be the center of the divine world of the 9 skies? Otherwise, why were all these mysteries related to the forbidden area of the East Sea? When the great sect was destroyed, the sect leader was buried in this bone coffin. At this moment, Jiang Chun stared at the bone coffin. His mind was filled with the ancient words on the inscription tablet. The inscription tablet in the ruin had recorded some things about the great sect and even mentioned the words Tian Qing and Tian Xian. Jiang Chun guessed that the great sect was related to him. This? How do I open this? At this moment, Jiang Chun tried to open the bone coffin. He used all his strength, but he could not move the coffin lid at all. Then, he found that there were actually special runes on the bone coffin. After careful observation, these runes were like seals that originated from the Tao and were very profound. Fortunately, Jiang Chun was proficient in these things. After 10 days of observation, he finally figured out the method to break it. Finally, Jiang Chun broke the seal and pressed his hands on the bone coffin. With the push of his arms, the coffin lid was slowly pushed open. After 10 breaths of time, when the coffin lid was completely pushed open, Jiang Chun's expression froze. That was because the bone coffin was empty and there was no corpse. One had to know that the inscription tablet clearly recorded that the sect leader of the great sect was buried in this bone coffin. Moreover, the seal on the bone coffin was still there. Even if the corpse of the great sect leader was spiritual, it was impossible for him to come out of the bone coffin. Then, could it be that the things recorded on the inscription tablet were fake? If it's fake, there's no need. Jiang Chun muttered. What Jiang Chun didn't know was that as soon as he opened the coffin, a gloomy light floated out of the coffin and disappeared in an instant. At this moment, just as Jiang Chun was puzzled, a yellow light suddenly erupted from the bone coffin. The light was very bright and beautiful, but it carried a monstrous resentment. What is this? Jiang Chun was shocked and kept retreating until he was 1,000 meters away. Then, he stopped and watched from afar. A few hours later, the yellow light in the bone coffin disappeared and there were no changes in the surroundings. Only then did Jiang Chun return to the side of the bone coffin. Strange. What's with that light? Jiang Chun frowned and carefully observed the inside and outside of the bone coffin. There was nothing special about it. In fact, the bone coffin was beginning to turn black and was no longer as white as jade as before. In just 10 breaths of time, the bone coffin turned into a black coffin that emitted a rotten aura. Why does it feel like this thing was dug out from the netherworld? Jiang Chun muttered. This rotten aura was too terrifying, as if it did not belong to this world. This is... After a few breaths of time, Jiang Chun planned to close the bone coffin, but when he turned over the coffin lid, he discovered that there was a line of bloody words on the inside of the coffin lid. In the name of heaven, I control the power of the ecliptic Tao, create the world's holy religion, and save all living beings in the world. Jiang Chun was stunned in place. What was with the words on the coffin lid? Was it written by the living being buried in this coffin? But, where was that living being? For a moment, all the hair on Jiang Chun's body stood on end. This was because he saw that among the bloody words, there were pieces of flesh and nails that had not yet rotted. The coffin lid was facing down. If one wanted to carve words on the inside of the coffin lid, it would have to be done before the lid was closed. Otherwise, there was only one possibility. There really was a living being buried in the coffin. Chapter 1023. Jiang Chun's hair stood on end. What was happening in front of him was too strange. Where did the living being in the bone coffin go? Were the words on the coffin lid carved before the coffin was sealed, or were they carved by the living being buried in the bone coffin after the coffin was sealed? Perhaps I shouldn't have opened this bone coffin, Jiangchen whispered. He felt that this matter was not simple. At the same time, in a small world, a fisherman was sitting quietly beside a stream, fishing as usual. However, at this moment, his fishing rod began to vibrate, and even the fishing line snapped. At this moment, the fisherman's expression changed drastically. He put away his fishing rod and looked at it a few times before looking up at the sky. Is it a coincidence? Or is it fate? After a long time, the fisherman sighed slightly and said, The one who tied the bell should untie it. What I did back then, will I return in this life? With that, the fisherman shook his head and muttered, He's already gone. What does it have to do with me? Do whatever you want. In the end, the fisherman regained his composure. Just like before, he sat cross-legged beside the stream and began fishing again. At this moment, Jiang Chun was still studying the bone coffin. He had always suspected that the bone coffin had something to do with him. After all, the inscription had mentioned the words Tian Xian and Tian Qing. However, when Jiang Chun thought about it carefully, it did not seem to be the case. The words Tian Xian and Tian Qing were indeed engraved on the inscription, but they were not connected together. Now that he thought about it carefully, Jiang Chun felt that he seemed to have misunderstood. Could it be that the words Tian Qing mentioned on the inscription aren't from my previous lives? Jiang Chun frowned and could not figure it out for a moment. Right at this moment, Old Nine arrived. When he arrived and saw the bone coffin that had turned black, his expression changed drastically. He hurried to the bone coffin and sized it up carefully before exclaiming, Sky-burying coffin? Sky-burying coffin? Jiang Chun exclaimed when he heard that. Jiang Chun had heard of the sky-burying coffin before. It was said that there were 3 sky-burying coffins in the world, and Huang Tian was buried in them. Qing Tian, Chan Tian. Back in the Yellow Destruction, Blue Destruction, and Blue Destruction eras, the 3 heavens were slain. Their corpses were buried in the heaven-burying coffin and sealed away. However, the world had only heard of the sky-burying coffin and had never seen it before. Moreover, the people of the world had different understandings of the word heaven. Many people believed that the word heaven was nothingness. How could there be a body? How could there be a corpse after death? However, those who had reached a certain cultivation level and could see through the secrets of the heavens knew that the so-called heavens were merely cultivators who were even more powerful. They had flesh, blood, and consciousness. They even dominated the grand das and laws of the 6 worlds. This sky-burying coffin can't be the one you took from the 10,000 Pong Bank, right? Old Nine said solemnly. Previously, the sky-burying coffin was snow-white like white jade. Old Ninth naturally did not think of the sky-burying coffin. But now, the coffin was completely black and filled with ecliptic qi. It was exactly the same as the sky-burying coffin in which Huang Tian was buried. Is heaven really buried inside? Jiang Chun asked. It should be. Old Nine nodded. Back then, I also learned some things about the death of the 3 heavens. This coffin should be the sky-burying coffin in which Huang Tian was buried according to the ancient records. Old Nine frowned and looked at the opened coffin lid. He asked doubtfully, Where is the thing buried inside? There is nothing at all, Jiang Chun said. After opening the coffin, there is no living thing buried inside. However, Old Nine did not think so. He carefully observed the coffin. Then, his eyes shone brightly. He formed a seal with both hands and shouted, Appear! Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, ripples appeared in the coffin. At the same time, a black fog rose. Then, the black fog dissipated, and a beautiful woman appeared in the coffin. She seemed to be in a deep sleep, lying quietly in the coffin. Layers of ecliptic qi flowed around her body. Green lotuses of the Great Path floated around her body. One could vaguely see runes formed by the Great Path flowing around her body. This person can't be Huang Tian, right? Jiang Chun was a little confused. Was this the legendary heaven? Oh no, she has run away. Old Nine's face darkened as he stared at the woman. After a long time, he sighed. Her soul has run away. Only this body is left. Is it a blessing or a curse? Jiang Chun asked. Old Nine didn't know what to say for a while. This was because no one knew why they had to kill the three heavens. The world only knew one thing. If the three heavens were still around, the south wall would not collapse. The living beings of the greater thousand world would not be able to enter the six realms. This was because the three heavens were the soul of the six realms. They were the will of the six realms. If the three heavens did not die, the south wall would not collapse. Just like now. If the three heavens were still around, how could the living beings of the greater thousand world enter the six realms? I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. The things that happened in those 3 eras were too strange. Old Nine said in a low voice. Perhaps the Pingtian clan knows the truth. After all, they were the main force when the three heavens were killed. Then, what about this corpse? Jiang Chun asked. He felt guilty and muttered. Did I get into trouble? Maybe you did, or maybe it's a fortuitous encounter. Old Nine said. Misfortune and fortune are interdependent. Perhaps Huang Tian's birth was already destined. With that, Old Nine closed the coffin and carved layers of seals on it. He said, seal it first. It might be useful in the future. However, just as Old Nine closed the coffin, the seals on it disappeared. At the same time, the coffin lid was pushed open. At this moment, Jiang Chun and Old Nine were shocked. They hurriedly retreated, thinking that Huang Tian had come back to life. However, a few breaths later they discovered that things did not seem to be so simple. Could the legend be true? The one who tied the bell should untie it. Old Nine frowned. He did not explain in detail. Instead, he looked at Jiang Chun and said, Go close the coffin. Me? Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He thought, even an emperor like you can't close the coffin. You want me, a god, to close it? Can I do it? However, after Jiang Chun closed the coffin, everything was very quiet and normal. Nothing strange happened. However, when Jiang Chun was 1,000 meters away from the coffin lid suddenly opened on its own. From now on, you can't be more than 1,000 meters away from the coffin. Old Nine said. Looks like the legend is true. Whoever opens the sky-burying coffin will be the coffin keeper. Huang Tian's soul has already escaped. Before long, she'll return and take back her body. At that time, whether it's a blessing or a curse, it'll all depend on your own fortune. Old Nine sighed. I have a cold and a fever of 39 degrees. I really have a headache and can't write. I'll make up for it in a few days. The golden age is about to descend. Everyone wait. The main character is about to rise. It's about to explode. Chapter 1024. OL9 clearly knew some things about John Santion back then, but as for what exactly happened back then, it was also hard for him to say clearly. He had only heard of the saying, whoever tied the bell must untie it. And now, Jiang Chun became the coffin keeper, making him even more convinced that these words were true. But to Jiang Chun, it was very depressing. Finally opening the bone coffin with great difficulty, in the end, he did not obtain anything, but inexplicably became the coffin keeper. What made him most uncomfortable was that this bone coffin could not be more than 1,000 meters away from him in the future. Once succeeded, the bone coffin would open by itself. Regarding this, Jiang Chun did not care. Open then open, what's the big deal? But OL9 told Jiang Chun that if the bone coffin was always in an open state, then Huang Tian would be able to find his physical body very soon. At that time, when Huang Tian came into being, whether it was a blessing or a curse was hard to say. According to the current situation, OL9 advised Jiang Chun to bring this heaven-burying coffin by his side and seal the coffin lid. It would not be too late to make a decision after the situation was clear. Helpless, Jiangqun could only carry this heaven-burying coffin on his back, feeling uncomfortable all over. Especially when he thought that this heaven-burying coffin still had Huang Tian's corpse inside. Jiangqun's hair stood on end, as if there was something staring at him from behind. Carrying the heaven-burying coffin on your back might be a blessing for you, or it might be a fortuitous opportunity, OL9 comforted. However, Jiangqun glanced sideways and asked huffily, "If it were you, would you carry it?" This? OL9 was speechless. If it were anyone else, they would not want to carry a coffin, right? Not to mention that it would damage their image. Just the corpse of Huang Tian inside the coffin made people's scalps tingle. Although Huang Tian's appearance was really stunning. Little Xia has been to the Pingtian clan for some time, right? Want to go take a look? Jiangqun asked. The moment these words came out, OL9's expression turned serious, and he said with a nod, "Going right away." Boom! However, before the two of them could walk out of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court's gates, a loud explosion resounded through the entire Nine Heavens divine world. It was as if the entire world had exploded. The deafening explosion caused everyone to feel dizzy. Some people even fainted on the spot. At the same time, the Grand Tao in the heavens and the earth underwent a change. The Grand Tao seemed to have been shattered by the explosion. Many cultivators could feel that their foundations and Tao fruits were affected. But in next to no time, the Grand Tao underwent another change. It seemed as if the pure energy of the Grand Tao had suffused the air and sprinkled down to every corner of the world. It was like a fog, but also like a rainbow, floating in the air. People only needed to wave their hands to absorb the power of the great Tao into their bodies, and their cultivation would improve by a lot. A golden age has come! Yin-yang upheaval! At this moment, everyone looked up at the sky. In the direction of Yongzhou, where yin and yang intersected, a bright sun had appeared beside the blood moon. The radiant sun was extremely bright, but it gave off a gloomy and pale aura. Under the radiance of the sun and moon, the intersection of yin and yang finally collapsed. 1. Accompanied by a few vibrations, the intersection of yin and yang collapsed, and a gloomy black door appeared. Behind the door, there was a strong aura of the netherworld, and there were even figures flashing behind the door. After a dozen breaths, a living creature walked out from behind the door of the netherworld. When his feet stepped on the land of the living, he could not help but look up to the sky and roar. "The living! I'm finally here! Emperor!" Many people exclaimed. They did not expect that the first person to step into the living after the yin-yang upheaval would be an emperor. Following that, a few more people walked out from the door of the netherworld. Their auras were extremely powerful, and the weakest was a supreme god. An hour later, at the intersection of yin and yang, a total of 3 emperors of the netherworld, 5 supreme gods, and many main gods of the netherworld appeared. However, if one looked carefully, there were still many people standing on the other side of the netherworld's door. In front of them, there was a surging river that seemed to be blocking their path. Moreover, someone saw a living creature of the netherworld trying to cross the river, but he was accidentally swept by the river and disappeared immediately, not even leaving behind a corpse. "That's the Luo River," Jiangqun said softly. At the same time, someone also noticed that the living creatures who had entered the living world were standing in place without moving. They seemed to be injured and were absorbing the vitality of heaven and earth to heal their injuries. The rumors are true. The Luo River separates the 2 realms of yin and yang. If you want to enter the living world from the netherworld, you have to cross the Luo River and pay a price, someone said. However, this so-called price was nothing to supreme gods and emperor-level experts. This price would at most cause them to be slightly injured, but it would not take their lives. "Where is the spirit of the Luo River?" Another 2 hours later, one of the 3 emperors of the netherworld spoke. His eyes opened, and the universe turned upside down. The great Tao turned into black lotuses that floated around him. He was using his divine ability to find Luoshan. This was because if he killed Luoshan, the Luo River would disappear. When that time came, the living creatures of the netherworld would not have to pay any price to enter the living world. A filthy place, a rotten world. From today onwards, everything will be destroyed. Before the Emperor of the Netherworld could find Luotian, the voice of the Red Lotus Venerable came from the sky. Then many people saw that in the far east of the 9 heavens divine world, rays of light shot into the sky and illuminated a city wall. No one knew how tall the city wall was, and it looked very illusory, like a layer of fog. It went deep into the entire 9 heavens divine world and surrounded the 6 realms. It was like a wall that surrounded the entire 6 realms. At this moment, the city wall was collapsing, turning into wisps of light and dissipating. After a dozen breaths, the entire city wall collapsed and disintegrated, leaving no trace behind. South Wall! That's the South Wall! It's collapsing! At this moment, the living creatures of the world cried out in alarm, and some people's faces were filled with fear. Boom! At the same time, a group of experts broke through the clouds and swooped down towards the 9 heavens divine world like meteors. A group of dirty ants in the burial ground. Today, we will clean this place. They will all be destroyed. Along with a few roars, a group of people led by the Red Lotus Venerable passed through the clouds. It was as if they had sensed the aura of the emperors of the netherworld and rushed towards them. I have said that when I arrive, I will wash the burial ground with blood. Today, I will kill the so-called invincible emperor in your eyes. After a dozen breaths, the Red Lotus Venerable and his group finally arrived. At a glance, there were a total of 13 people in the Red Lotus Venerable's group. The strongest among them was the Red Lotus Venerable, whose cultivation level was at the level of Ultimate God. The other few people's cultivation levels were about the same, around the level of Lower Ultimate God. These 13 living creatures from the Great Thousand World were not afraid when they encountered the 3 emperors and 5 ultimate gods of the netherworld. Chapter 1025. The arrival of Red Lotus Venerable and the others stunned the group of people from the underworld. They looked at Red Lotus Venerable and the others with strange expressions as if they were looking at idiots. You want to kill us? The Emperor of the Underworld raised his eyebrows and said with a strange expression, Are you sure you didn't find the wrong people? You're just creatures from the burial ground, a filthy place. So what if you're an emperor? In the eyes of the creatures of the great wide world, you're like ants. Red Lotus Venerable was very arrogant, and the anger that he had suppressed for a long time was finally vented. Then, he took a step forward, and red lotuses bloomed on his body. Then, they turned into a seal and pressed down on the leading emperor. The Emperor of the Underworld was stunned for a moment. Looking at the seal that was rushing over, he raised his eyebrows, and a halo burst out beside him. Then, the seal dissipated, and even Red Lotus Venerable was sent flying. His body cracked, and his soul was almost destroyed. What? Impossible! How can the Emperor of the burial ground have such strength? At this moment, the creatures from the great wide world were terrified. In the great wide world, they had always heard that the cultivators of the burial ground were very weak. Even the cultivation of an emperor could only be compared to the cultivation of a divine venerable in the great wide world. Therefore, Red Lotus Venerable and the others had always thought that the burial ground was not worth paying attention to. Even in the face of an emperor, they were not afraid at all. However, the reality was often so cruel. Are the people of the great wide world so arrogant now? The Emperor of the Underworld muttered. He looked at the 2 emperors beside him and asked, Was it like this in the past? In the past, the great wide world came to the 6 realms a few times, but they were all obedient. I've never seen anyone so arrogant. This time, it's a little strange. The other 2 emperors frowned. What was wrong with the great wide world? Did they really treat the 6 realms as ants? Run! At this moment, Red Lotus Venerable and the others were completely flustered. The intelligence was wrong. The emperors of the 6 realms were still emperors, and their combat strength was invincible. You want to destroy the 6 realms? Don't go. The leader of the emperors raised his eyebrows and gently pushed his palm forward. His emperor chi exploded like a tsunami and instantly drowned Red Lotus honored sage and the others. Then, the palm exploded like fireworks. Along with it, Reverend Red Lotus and the others exploded as well. Perhaps no one would have thought that a group of people who had been watching from the outside world for so long would die as soon as they entered the 6 realms. However, it was understandable. After all, the beings of the great wide world had overestimated themselves. They believed that a divine venerable could compete with the emperors of the 6 realms, or even crush them. I don't know where he got his confidence and courage from. You stay here and receive the others from the Yin and Yang clans. I'll go kill the spirit of Luo Shui, said the leading emperor. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at the Pinkian clan. 1. Accompanied by the sound of the air being torn apart, the monarch vanished, and when he reappeared, he was already before the entrance of Flourishing Age Academy. Obviously, he had found Luoshin. However, before he could do anything, Ping Si appeared at the entrance. He frowned and asked, You want to start a war with my Pingtian clan as soon as you arrive? We can start a war, but there's no need for that. The monarch of the underworld shook his head and said straightforwardly, Hand over the spirit of Luo Shui and I can leave. So you want to start a war? Ping Si's eyes narrowed as he said coldly, Do you know that the current Luoshin is a member of my Pingtian clan? So what? He's not a direct descendant of the Pingtian clan. The monarch of the underworld said softly, There's no need for the Pingtian clan to start a war with my underworld for an outsider, right? Ping Si's expression could not help but become stern when he heard that. Handing over Luoshin would be admitting defeat without a doubt. Not only would that hurt the morale of the 6 realms, but it would also embarrass the Pingtian clan. After serious consideration, Ping Si clasped his hands towards the monarch of the underworld and said, Please enlighten me. Oh? It seems like this war is unavoidable, the monarch of the underworld said. The monarch of the underworld said softly, But that's right. I didn't enter the world of the living just to find that person. The 2 worlds of Yin and Yang are fated to merge, and the beings of the underworld will definitely become the rulers of this world. Boom! However, just as the monarch of the underworld finished speaking, a crack suddenly appeared in the sky. Everyone raised their heads and discovered that the sky seemed to have cracked open. They could see the scenery of the outer realms. The stars rotated, and their radiance accompanied the coldness and darkness of the universe, as if describing the ruthlessness and beauty of the great Tao. At the same time, a man with golden hair stood in the crack. His eyes were like torches, as if they could illuminate the past, present, and future. You're the one who injured my great 1,000 realms? At that moment, golden light shot out from his eyes, pressing towards the monarch of the underworld. Cultivators of the underworld have never feared anything. The monarch of the underworld did not hesitate at all. After letting out a long roar, he actually charged out. Afterwards, everyone only saw light and ripples of the great Tao spread out in outer space, and there were even explosions. The monarch from the underworld was too powerful. He actually chose to fight. If the cultivators of the Yang realm had half the courage of the creatures of the underworld, they wouldn't have been bullied to such an extent. Sigh. Many creatures of the Yang realm sighed. No one had expected that the first real battle with the great 1,000 realms would be started by the monarch of the underworld. Many people were looking forward to it, hoping that the monarch of the underworld would win. Even the creatures of the Yang realm were cheering for him in their hearts. However, in just half an incense stick's time, the monarch of the underworld returned. His body was injured, and there was a crack between his brows. His aura was fluctuating, and his injuries were not light. At this moment, he returned to the intersection of Yin and Yang. His gaze was fixed on the sky, and the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a sneer with a trace of contempt. The great 1,000 realms boasted of being high and mighty, suppressing the 6 realms in everything, but now it seems, that's all there is to it, the monarch of the underworld said. As soon as he said this, everyone realized that the golden-haired man from the Great Thousand Realms was only left with a soul. His physical body had been beaten up and was currently being reforged. Reddish gold blood essence scattered in the air, like golden stars that filled the sky. The golden-haired man remained silent. In a few breaths of time, his physical body was reforged. Then, the golden light in his eyes erupted again. "The 6 realms are indeed powerful," the golden-haired man said softly. His body was overflowing with fighting spirit. He pointed at the monarch of the underworld and said, "Come here, do you dare to fight again?" When the monarch of the underworld heard this, his expression changed. He stared at the golden-haired man in surprise and thought to himself, "This person's injuries have healed?" One had to know that in the battle just now, both of them were seriously injured. In fact, the creatures of the underworld were certain that the other party's injuries were definitely worse than his. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.